Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and of course, you're invited to join us here. You can bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. We'll give you our toll-free numbers as well as the Skype username here in moments. Lots of interesting stuff in the news to talk about with you tonight. And in the studio with you, you've got me, Ian.
Rich Paul.
And Darryl.
All right, so you can join us here online anytime over at freetalklive.com. Coming up, will robots be taking your job rather than an immigrant?
They took our job!
It might be happening
What about
soon.
robot immigrants?
Well, then that could be another class to be discriminated against.
Aren't those technically imports?
But first, Darryl, you wanted to tell us about the latest from the Malheur, Oregon Wildlife Refuge, where for listeners who might not have been paying attention for the first month of the year to the news, there were a few dozen occupiers that had armed up and had taken over the wildlife refuge without, I guess, any federal agents, federal wildlife workers there. They sort of took over and abandoned, or at least for the winter time.
No, it was closed for a weekend.
Oh, really? Oh,
it was
okay.
only closed for the weekend. I don't know why people keep saying it was closed for the winter. It was closed for the weekend. They went over New Year's weekend.
I did not know about that. Okay, got it. And they took it over.
It was January 2nd. How did you not know it was New Year's weekend?
Well, I didn't know it was only
He
closed
didn't
for the
know how
weekend.
long the facility was closed for.
It seemed like a pretty desolate place, and didn't know that it was. Some places close down for the wintertime. There's a campground here in New Hampshire that closes down for the winter, and they reopen in the springtime. But anyway, they took over this federal wildlife refuge. They had guns, and that's one of the things that made them a little more different than your typical occupiers, who many of them would eschew having weapons with them.
Yes.
But otherwise, there really wasn't that much of a difference. It was still a similar concept of occupying federal territory, and they ended up, some of them got arrested. A lot of them did, actually.
25.
Really? Have there been that many at this point? Okay, so a couple of dozen of them have been arrested. I don't know if there are anyone who, I don't know if that means that anyone got away without an arrest at this point. There were at least a few dozen people that were there.
There
apparently.
were probably some that got away without getting arrested, because I heard reports at one point they claimed there were upwards of 100.
Yeah, but that was never really confirmed.
Right, it was never really confirmed, but after the first arrest until the final arrest, a lot of people wound up leaving.
A couple of our listeners actually went up there, and I guess they haven't been arrested yet, so that's a good thing. They went up during more of the peak time when there were a lot of people there, and they said there were only a few dozen people, so maybe like 3 dozen or something like that. So maybe if you went there in the very beginning days when there were too many people to where the feds couldn't know who they all were, you could have gotten away with not being arrested. But if you stayed toward the end, then you probably definitely ended up getting arrested. And now there's an update on the cleanup operations, because we had seen some of the video footage taken by some of the occupiers there, and things looked kind of messy on the inside of the wildlife refuge. Like, they didn't leave that place better than they found it, I don't think.
And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is saying that they expect to spend an additional $4 million to clean up the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, and hoping to have it open to the public again after the 41-day takeover. Workers have removed, quote, mountains of trash from the buildings since the standoff ended on February 11th. They say there's still plenty to do. Holes had been punched in walls, office equipment was destroyed, and there was a large hole that the occupiers used for defecation after the water pipes burst in the main building.
Whoa.
Wildlife experts say the damage goes beyond what's immediately in front of them. Biologist Linda Beck said 3 years' worth of work to combat carp in the refuge waterways had been destroyed. She hasn't been able to keep the invasive species from overpopulating. She said the hardest thing was not being able to plan, so we didn't know if it was going to last 2 days, 2 months, or longer. Just the kind of waiting game, and in science, you need to plan ahead. Fish and Wildlife Director Dan Ash said that cleanup and renovations will cost nearly $4 million, with an additional $2 million being spent during the standoff itself, including housing the 17 Refuge employees in hotels for the weeks that the occupiers started threatening them. Local police agencies have not totaled their cost yet.
Now, is that because the Refuge employees normally live at the Refuge? Why else would you have to house them in hotels?
Well, if somebody's threatening them and they know where they live, you don't want them staying in their house.
I don't think anyone was threatened.
Well, according
that's
to the
what
article,
it just says. They had to put the employees in a hotel because occupiers threatened them. So the claim is they were threatened.
Okay.
So if somebody is having life threat or death threats against them,
I see what you're saying.
And the person that's making the threat knows where they live, in theory, you don't want the person being at their house.
Huh.
You want them being at some place that
I get death
no one
threats
knows
all the time,
where
and
they
everybody knows where I live. Come on, don't be wimps.
Well, I think there is a certainly, when you deal with the government, they're going to overestimate cost, obviously.
Yes.
So it probably isn't going to cost $4 million to clean up this wildlife refuge. At least if you brought some private company in, you had bids, somebody could lower, I'm sure, do it for $1 million or whatever the amount would be, $500,000. I mean, really, you're talking about trucking out a bunch of junk and filling in some holes.
It's easy to spend $4 million when management steals $3.5 million. So I think the government could easily spend $4 million on the project.
Oh, they're going to spend the $4 million, no doubt about it. But I question whether or not that's what it would actually cost if any of us did the job.
And the lawyer, and this isn't from this article, it's from one that I had read elsewhere. The lawyer for the Bundys and the other people that wound up getting arrested, he's questioning where they're coming up with this figure. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, it's not just cleaning up the inside, but there were trenches that were dug.
That's
and
true.
A lot of stuff outside. So, like, new paths were made, and we have to put trees back where those were. And
they did have a digging machine out there, and you could see them in the video that they were streaming live, that one of them was at least one or two of them were operating this, caterpillar device or whatever that was moving earth around. So they definitely were digging some holes out there.
Right. So whatever digging was done needs to be undone.
Right.
So I can see a lot of labor that needs to be done, but I don't think it's going to wind up being $4 million. Plus, that doesn't include whatever amount of money the FBI spent. This says that the local police agencies have not totaled their costs. The FBI also hasn't totaled their costs. So we really don't know how much this is going to wind up costing taxpayers.
Well, I've got a suggestion. How about if they save the $4 million, shut down the wildlife refuge and sell it to somebody who has the money to operate it?
Or just give the land back to the people that they took the land from in the first place, which is the whole point of the people going to take over the wildlife refuge.
Yeah, although that particular piece of land, I think, at least according to one of the articles that I read, has actually been in government hands since the Mexican-American War, so they'd have to give it back to Mexico.
Well, the most recent acquisition was back in the 90s, where they started off with, here's a refuge, and then they slowly grew it by taking land from people.
Oh, they've been adding things. Okay, that wasn't in what I read, but I'm not saying it's not true. It may well be.
So we covered it fairly in-depth one night, where somebody had sent us a link with history going back like 75 years with just one of the families that lives on land bordering this wildlife refuge.
Now, obviously, they want to beef up the amounts here because they're going to bring this up in court. They're going to say these defendants caused $4 million worth of damage plus $2 million of FBI time plus, they're going to try to make this sound a lot worse than it probably actually was. Now, I want to make it clear, what I saw was a mess. There was a video that one of the guys took, I think his name was David Fry, one of the final 4 or 5 occupiers there, as he was walking through the inside of the facility, which is where many of them had camped out in the earlier days. They ended up moving outside toward the end, where they were camped out toward the front gate. But it was an absolute mess. I mean, that place was definitely trashed, and I'm sure they did not find it in that condition. So I think to some extent there's some truth to this, just the numbers I question. You can share your thoughts with us here, 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you suffering with hearing loss? Are you sick of people constantly complaining that your TV is too loud? Are you tired of asking people to speak up? Would you like to hear more clearly, but you don't want to wear a hearing aid that makes you look old? Then you need to try Listen Clear, a life-changing breakthrough precisely designed by top audio engineers to fit your ear almost invisibly. And you can adjust Listen Clear to find the perfect way to hear everything, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And right now you can try Listen Clear absolutely free, with free shipping. We'll even give you free batteries for life. So call now, 1-800-718-3929. Listen Clear is lightweight and completely hassle-free, and it's practically invisible. Call for your 100% free home trial with free shipping and free batteries for life. For free information, call now, 1-800-718-3929. That's 1-800-718-3929. 1-800-718-3929.
It's about time something new came along for better selling and buying online. And I found it.
What now, Marge?
It's buysellmakeoffer.com.
Never heard of it.
It's a brand new company. That's why you've never heard of it. It's the newest and best way to sell any products online. I did all the research.
Sell my car?
Yes.
Our home?
Yep.
My golf bag?
Your golf clubs. All of them.
How about your purse collection hoard?
Hey, now.
You said any product.
Right. I did. We get 30 days free.
Really?
Packages starting from only $7.95. And buysellmakeoffer.com will never charge item fees, ever. Never. And this is cool. Listen to this. You can even use Skype or video to show your items.
That's cool.
Yes. All we have to do is go to the website, sign up, and then load our stuff to sell. I love this site.
Buysellmakeoffer.com.
Buysellmakeoffer.com. You got it?
Buysellmakeoffer.com.
Buysellmakeoffer.com. Better selling, better buying.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
The three most important things you can do for Free Talk Live are: 1, share one episode a week on Facebook or in some other social networking site. 2, buy the things you buy online through shop.freetalklive.com. 3, give $5 a month to the AMP program. You likely buy all kinds of things online. Amazon is the largest online retailer. You can get what you need at the same prices with free Super Saver shipping by going to shop.freetalklive.com. Please do your online shopping at shop.freetalklive.com.
Ross Ulbricht was convicted in early 2015 of running the infamous Silk Road Underground Market. The Silk Road was a gift to humanity and helped reduce the harms brought on by drug prohibition. For this good deed, Ross has been sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Now, an appeal is Ross's only chance, and he needs your support. Please visit freeross.org, where you can contribute via various methods, including Bitcoin. Visit freeross.org. That's freeross.org.
If you enjoy LRN.FM, please contribute to your favorite shows via their websites and become an amplifier at amp.lrn.fm. That's amp.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Coming up, the Uber crackdown has begun, with Uber Grandma being ticketed 3 times in one weekend out
3 times
in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just for driving people home safely. We'll give you the latest on that. Also, you can join us online, get your shopping done over at shop.freetalklive.com. When you need to buy stuff, you're probably going to shop at Amazon if you're shopping online. And if so, why not go through our affiliate link so Free Talk Live gets a cut of the sale? Go to shop.freetalklive.com. and you can start your shopping there. It's the same great Amazon experience you're used to. It's just you're entering through Free Talk Live's affiliate link, so Free Talk Live gets a cut at shop.freetalklive.com. Darryl, you're telling us about the wildlife refuge, the Malheur Federal Wildlife Refuge in Oregon, that, of course, was occupied for more than 40 days.
Yes.
By there's an armed group of people. Now, more than 24 of them have been arrested. Have been
25
charged.
arrested plus 1 dead.
That's right. And the video, of course, came out, the video from inside the car where the man was killed by not federal agents, but by Oregon State Police. So there's now 2 camera angles on that. The case continues to develop, and the latest is that the Federal Wildlife Refuge operators are saying it's going to cost upwards of $4 million.
$4 million more dollars. They've already spent nearly $2 million.
Oh, okay. So then $6 million is what they're estimating could be the total cost.
The $6 million birds.
Of cleaning up the mess ostensibly left by the occupiers. And there's no doubt there was a mess. I did see the footage of at least a portion of the mess, and I was shocked. Like, it looked like, like a pack rat kind of mess.
Yeah.
It looked like just living in filth kind of mess. And I couldn't live in a place like that, but apparently the occupiers were doing so, and they weren't cleaning up after themselves. They had apparently burst the pipes somewhere in the building, ended up having to dig a hole to defecate in outside. So it's a pretty ugly cleanup.
Did the pipes burst before the water was shut off, or as a result of shutting the water off?
I'm not clear.
I don't know, and my guess is it probably happened because the water was shut off, but of course the feds aren't going to admit that, yes, we caused the pipes to burst. Mm-hmm. They're going to blame everything on the people that were there. In response, however, Michael Arnold, that's the attorney for Eamon Bundy,
who's the leader, if you will, of the group.
Right. He says that the government should not be using the protest as a blank check for unwarranted expenses. Specifically, he said, the protest should not be a government expenditure lottery ticket. I've only heard of one wall that was damaged in the whole set of buildings. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Agency says that they've spent $2.5 million to station more law enforcement officers at its western facilities because it feared the protest could spread beyond eastern Oregon. So this was while the thing was happening that they put the extra protesters. That represented the largest share of the more than $6 million spent by the agency. The figure also includes $1.7 million to restore the refuge itself and costs to relocate the 17 employees from the center because of the aforementioned threats. The occupation obviously has cost the federal taxpayers millions and millions of dollars.
Now, that's interesting. I just want to talk a little more about the idea of the threats. That's the first. This article is the first I've heard of these supposed threats against the employees.
I've heard as well.
Right. So when we were reading more about this while it was actually happening, the people who were involved, Eamon Bundy and the folks who at the very least were the spokespeople, were making claims that this was a peaceful movement, that yes, they were armed, but that's just because they believe in their right to bear arms, that they weren't threatening anyone, that was not their intention. They just wanted to make a stand for what they considered to be issues that were important to them, their personal freedom or whatever it is, that taking their land back from the feds. I'm not really sure all of their personal issues with the federal government, but they definitely have some grievances.
Yes.
And they didn't do anything violent at any point. There's no real evidence of that. And so as far as these threats are concerned, that could simply be one federal agent calling in on an anonymous line to another federal agent and threatening them, right? Like, oh, hey, we need a reason to hire more or put more agents out. We need overtime. So let's call in a threat and threaten the employees who aren't even at the facility at the moment. And then we'll have the excuse to bring more FBI agents in, and then we can position them wherever we like, and everybody gets to collect big-time overtime checks. I find it hard to believe that there was any real threat to anyone here.
And the Fish and Wildlife Service is also saying that they're having to spend a lot of money to restore the Native American artifacts that the occupiers were saying were in a horrible condition, and they were restoring because the feds weren't taking care of it. Because remember, we read the story where there's the claim about, the Native American artifacts, and one of the occupiers was like, yeah, they were all covered in dust. We started trying to clean them up. So this entire thing, it just, to me anyway, it seems like, federal government and local governments are saying, all right, how much money do you want? All right, let's just write a big check, and oh yeah, there was that renovation that we needed to do a long time ago. We'll blame the protesters on that.
Right. So is that pretty much the story?
Yeah, that's pretty much the story.
I have not seen any other updates. I'm sure there have been, but I haven't been specifically looking for them. So if anybody wants to kind of update us on the legal status of the occupiers themselves, I suspect many of them are being held. I don't know if there's bail that has been offered on some or all of the cases.
There was, I think, one of the women was allowed to bail herself out or got out on some sort of PR sort of something, but she's not allowed to visit any of the people that were arrested and still remain incarcerated, including her husband. So she can't visit her husband or talk to her husband at all as part of her release.
That seems pretty unnecessarily restrictive.
Well, he is one of the co-defendants. Can't talk to any of the co-defendants. Doesn't matter that you're married to one of them.
Not talking to co-defendants is a very common bail condition, although I can't think of any time I've heard it applied to a husband and wife except when one of them was the victim of the crime.
Well, right, because isn't there some sort of special exemption for husbands and wives in that they can't testify against one another?
Husband and wives cannot be made to testify against each other in most states, and in some states I'm told they cannot testify against each other. Although I have a hard time believing that, for example, in a spousal abuse case, a wife would not be able to testify against a husband who beat her. It's mainly designed as an exemption to allow husbands and wives to speak freely. So it also it doesn't cover what you saw. It only covers what your spouse said to you.
It's referred to as spousal privilege.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's akin to attorney-client privilege, but at the same time, it's not the same thing.
There is a new 6-count indictment. I'm just kind of looking for Malheur Wildlife Refuge updates here. Not that new. It's a couple weeks old, but a 6-count indictment unsealed, adding one more defendant and more charges in the armed takeover, which includes 26 people. 855-450-FREE. You can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Sling bow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of sling bow. A new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
Arcade City is a ride-sharing app built by drivers for drivers. It's more decentralized than Uber and Lyft. With Arcade City, you can keep all of what you earn. Sign up now to drive for Arcade City at arcade.freetalklive.com. Arcade City was created by New Hampshire liberty activist Christopher David. When he publicized the idea in January 2016, he hoped to recruit 100 drivers by the end of the month. Instead, he blew past his goal with over 1,300 drivers signing up in just 2 weeks. Arcade City is connecting drivers directly with riders and is disrupting the already disrupted transportation industry. If you want to get involved, you can join as a rider or a driver. To ride with Arcade City, visit arcaderide.freetalklive.com. To drive with Arcade City, visit arcade.freetalklive.com. That's arcade.freetalklive.com to drive, or arcaderide.freetalklive.com to ride with Arcade City. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com. You can get emailed announcements and participate in contests via our email updates list. Plus, we have a Twitter account that you can follow and a Facebook page where you can become a fan. So visit news.freetalklive.com to get news about Free Talk Live as soon as it's announced and the way you want it delivered at news.freetalklive.com. That's news.freetalklive.com.
It's The Onion Radio News. General Motors reports record sales of its new disposable car. This is Doyle Redland reporting. General Motors has announced a 56% increase in earnings this year, attributing much of it to February's wildly successful launch of the GMC Whim, the first ever non-refillable disposable automobile. Debuting at a cost of $1,100 each, the vehicles are flying out of showrooms as quickly as dealers can stock them. Whim enthusiast Glenn Shriver.
I recently consumed 4 vehicles driving from my home to Daytona Beach for the first annual Whim Owners Convention. I've already collected all 8 colors.
Rival automakers are preparing to counter with their own lines of disposable cars, including the Ford Temporare and the Chrysler Dumper. The 2002 Mitsubishi Ditch will be unveiled later this year with a projected sticker price of $799. Doyle Redland for The Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
You can put the Liberty Radio Network on the air in your area. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how. Broadcast.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. We invite you to join us here, and you can bring up anything you want. 855-450-3733, the latest on the Uber crackdown that was promised in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is, of course, where the Uber civil disobedience has been going on since August of last year. The police announced a few weeks ago that they were going to be cracking down, and this weekend seemed to be the beginning of that. We'll tell you more about it. With you in studio, you've got Ian,
Rich Paul,
and Darryl.
And also want to let you know about ProXPN. If you're getting online and you're not protecting yourself, you're not taking steps to do that, well, ProXPN is a step you really should consider. It's pretty affordable, too. You can actually... it's cheaper per month than a good cup of coffee, especially when you use our discount code, which is FTL50. Gets you 50% off the regular monthly price for the lifetime of an annual account. And it gets you ProXPN's virtual private network that encrypts your data from your computer or mobile device. Whether you've got a Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, or Linux device, ProXPN can help you. In fact, if you're a Windows user, you can ask ProXPN about changing your DNS settings for even greater anonymity. Plus, ProXPN keeps no logs of your activities whatsoever. They take credit card and Bitcoin, so use code FTL50 and you'll get that 50% off the regular monthly price for the lifetime of your annual account. Get started at proxpn.com right now. That's code FTL50 at proxpn.com. Take back the privacy. That is your right. You're certainly welcome to comment on the Malheur Federal Wildlife Refuge, the latest in that case. But I think we pretty much covered that. I don't know if there's much else to say.
No, there's not really anything else to say on that.
I mean, the interesting thing about that piece of activism, though, and is that although they got the whole nation talking, it seems like most people didn't know what they were talking about. I was disappointed in their communications and their public relations, because I think if they'd really gotten it out more exactly what their grievances were, along with who was victimized by the federal government, in what way were they victimized by the federal government, I think they would have been able to garner some more sympathy.
Well, they definitely had a lot of media attention.
Right.
So I'm sure whoever their spokespeople were, one of them ended up killed. Lavoy Finicum was the guy that was shot to death. But, I suspect that in some of those interviews they explained, hey, we're mad that the federal government has been taking people's land for decades here, and this is our way of fighting back. It's just that I think a lot of that noise can get lost in the noise of the media coverage about these people have guns and they've taken over.
Yeah, well, and of course, sometimes the media, you say what you want to say to the media, and the media chooses not to write it down because they're not interested in reporting it. So that may well have been the problem, but it just seems to me like if they had a blog out there somewhere where they were posting every day and you could read their words.
That's a good point. They definitely didn't have that.
Yeah.
There was the one guy who had a video streaming that he was doing, but that wasn't any kind of curated thing. He was just streaming hours and hours of video over time, and any kind of message would have been lost in, again, the noise of just random video of some guy moving earth around with construction equipment.
Yeah, and part of the issue was just they were all Westerners, so they talk very, very slowly, and I could never get through their videos.
So, I do agree with you. Better communication would have been helpful. You can't rely on the media to effectively communicate your message for you, because you can sit down for an hour-long interview with some mainstream media publication, and if you're lucky, they'll use 3 sentences in the final cut of the 2-minute-long package that they put together.
Yeah.
So even if you give your best information to them, they aren't guaranteed to relay that information in a reliable manner. So that's why, at least now, you can be the media. And for a long time at the Refuge, they did have internet access. So it wasn't like they could say, well, we can't get a word out because we've been cut off, because the feds really didn't cut them off until the very, very end. And then even then, they managed to get back on the air to some extent, because at the very end, they still managed to get a phone call out. I don't know if you remember the night of the final showdown between the feds and the occupiers. They were on the phone the whole time almost with Gavin Syme, who was not there, but in I believe Washington State in his home studio, and he streamed that live over his YouTube channel. So they, at almost all times, did have the ability to do what you're talking about, Rich. They just didn't have the wherewithal or the experience in blogging. Not that you need that much experience. It's not hard to create a blog for yourself. You can just go to WordPress.com, and within 10 minutes, you can have your own blog set up. So there's really no reason why they shouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah. Well, something to keep in mind if any of our listeners ever decide to take over a wildlife refuge.
I think it's a terrible idea. I would
taking over wildlife refuges.
Yeah.
It's not the way to really get attention. The feds could have dealt with it very easily by just ignoring them, and they're no threat to anybody by being there.
Yeah, I wonder what would have happened. I mean, had the feds taken the we're just going to ignore these people route, which, of course, the feds aren't likely to take that route. They are likely to use we're going to use violence route, because that's pretty much the only tool they understand.
That's what they do.
Right. But if they were to do what you suggested and leave them alone, it would have been interesting to see how that shook out, right? I mean, they'd probably... I'm sure the employees of the wildlife refuge would have been frustrated that they couldn't go to their jobs, but besides that, there really wouldn't have been any serious impact. I highly doubt there's many visitors that come to the wildlife refuge during the middle of the wintertime, but I don't know. I've never been there before.
No clue.
Yeah. So you can share your thoughts here toll free at 855-450-FREE. A little bit about the charges, I guess. According to the Oregonian, OregonLive.com, there's a new indictment that's been unsealed charging 26 people with federal conspiracy. It also charges 20 of the defendants with possessing firearms and dangerous weapons at the federal refuge, 9 with use and carry of a firearm in relation to a crime of violence, 3 with theft of government property, and 2 with depredation of government property. The indictment alleges Kenneth Medenbach stole and used a 2012 Ford F-350 truck that belonged to the Fish and Wildlife Service, that John Ritzheimer and Ryan Bundy stole government cameras and related equipment during the course of the occupation, and Sean Anderson, who is one of the last 4 occupiers, and an unnamed defendant are accused of depredation of government property with their alleged excavation of an archaeological site considered sacred to the Burns Pout tribe, says
Sean Anderson is the husband of Sandy. She's the one that I had mentioned as part of the bail conditions is prohibited from speaking even to her husband.
Sean was the bigger guy of the final four occupiers who frequently was seen on the video feed threatening the federal agents, saying to people at one point, asking for backup to show up from the outside, and told them that if the feds try to get in your way, to shoot them where they stand or something like that. So that guy is going to have a real tough time defending that particular case. I mean, he was actually calling for violence towards the very end. But as far as the beginning of the occupation, it really wasn't a violent occupation. When there were dozens of people there, it was more of just kind of something that was happening. I never got the impression that they had at any point threatened any federal agents or anyone that worked there. So that's sort of the latest in the case. You're welcome to join us here and share your thoughts at 855-450-FREE, how it's all going to end up. A number of the occupiers have gone ahead and pled not guilty at this point, and the case is developing. 855-450-FREE. Now, a little closer to home here in New Hampshire, where we're doing this show from, there has been the developing Uber controversy on the seacoast of New Hampshire since August of last year, when the Portsmouth City Council basically outlawed ride-sharing. Now, they didn't quite make it illegal to do ride-sharing, but what they did do was they made it so that ride-sharing providers like Uber would have to jump through extra hoops, more so than what they would normally be willing to do in order to operate in the city of Portsmouth. And so that resulted in one of our friends of the show, Christopher David, who's a Free State Project early mover, creating free Uber and starting to perform civil disobedience by giving people rides for Uber, even though the city said that it's illegal. And this weekend, they began a crackdown on the Uber drivers. We'll tell you about it coming up.
Hello?
Congratulations.
For what?
For losing all that weight. How'd you do it so fast?
ASAP.
ASAP what? What's that mean?
Are you ready to get as skinny as possible, as soon as possible, as simple as possible, and as sexy as possible?
I'm listening.
Then get with the ASAP program. It's real and it works. No smooth talk, no slick advertising, and no exaggerated claims of success.
I've got to know more.
Welcome to ASAP, as slim as possible. Whether you have 10, 20, or 50 pounds to lose, ASAP is your weight loss answer. ASAP targets the abnormal fat reserves and makes them available to be burned as fuel and contains no caffeine or hormones. Order ASAP at wholesale prices or join the team to share the business with others. Visit GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. Lose weight and look great with ASAP, as slim as possible.
Think body armor is just for commandos? Think again. In a collapse situation, you need to protect your entire family. Infidel Body Armor has created lightweight armor that repels AR-15 and AK-47 rounds. And priced at around $500, it won't break the bank. The whole kit weighs just 10 pounds, light enough for your 7-year-old or 70-year-old. Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com and get yours today. That's InfidelBodyArmor.com. Just won't quit.
Sciatica, lower back pain, hip pain, poor posture. If you suffer from any of these problems, get ready to relax. Introducing an amazing product that's been in the market for over 25 years, the Sacro Wedgie. It was invented by a football coach using a common-sense osteopath technique. He created this device to help his athletes by isolating and supporting the sacrum, which is the keystone of our anatomy. This wedge-shaped bone is in the center of our hips.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippie! Jesus. On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you got to keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and weed, the road to freedom. a film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadadi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's posts pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that tenth of a calorie it takes to click on something. Facebook.freetalklive.com.
If you want to play online poker with Bitcoin, you need a site that's trustworthy and technically sound. The site managers of swcpoker.eu have proven their commitment to bringing you great gameplay from a site you can trust. swcpoker.eu. They have lots of new games too, including Chinese poker, and their Krill leaderboard is open right now. It's a beautiful site, easy to use with lots of players. Go on over to swcpoker.eu now and have some fun with your Bitcoin. swcpoker.eu.
You can connect with the Liberty Radio Network via our Facebook page at facebook.lrn.fm. That's facebook.lrn.fm.
That's a new music bed. Not sure where that one came from. So, toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. You can join us here on Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. Now, with you in studio tonight, you've got Ian,
Rich Paul,
and Darryl.
So the latest on the Uber controversy here in New Hampshire, where Uber drivers, including one who's lovingly called Uber Grandma, have been engaging in civil disobedience. This lady is a hero. It didn't start with Uber Grandma. It started with Christopher David, and we've had him on the show previously to talk about free Uber and the movement to set ride-sharing free, and actually to just set all transportation services free out in not just the seacoast, but all across the United States, around the world, in New Hampshire. But you got to focus at home first, and so that's what's been going on out on the seacoast of New Hampshire, where drivers for Uber have been risking $500 and then $1,000 tickets. So your first ticket's $500, the second ticket, and every ticket thereafter is $1,000.
Can we refer to them as Ubermensch?
What does that mean in German?
Supermen. Literally, Uber means super.
I don't think they would necessarily object, but the lady actually is really the hero in this particular case. Is there a Uber women?
You see, I don't know if the masculine includes the feminine in German. In English, of course, supermen would include superwomen if there were super people of both genders, but I don't know if that would work for Germany.
Well, the real hero in this story has become Stephanie Franz. She's 64 years old. She's known as Uber Grandma. And
Uberfrau.
She never intended to be a civil disobedience hero. She didn't intend to be the face of the free Uber movement, but she became that when the government targeted her. She was the first person to receive a ticket for driving people home, usually drunk people, because, it's people who use Uber, in a lot of cases, have been drinking in bars and things like that. They're young people. Uber's clientele tends to be, 40s or under. Usually millennials tend to be the people that use Uber. And so, you've had a few drinks in the bar, you pop open your phone, you call for an Uber, and they take you home. And that's the way it should work. But unfortunately, the police have been getting involved and pulling people over and ticketing the drivers. And this weekend, they conducted what they called a two-night Transportation Services Compliance Detail over the weekend, where 7 tickets were given to Uber drivers, and they even cited a taxi driver for failing to display a placard, according to Police Lieutenant Chris Cummings. This story from SeacoastOnline.com. Stephanie Franz, who's again known as Uber Grandma, was given 3 of the 8 tickets, bringing her total number of Uber-related citations to 7. And according to her posts on Facebook this weekend, that meant that she has now racked up over $7,000, so $7,500 or so in fines.
I thought it was 65.
Yeah, maybe she said
because
7,000.
The first one was 500, and each additional was 1,000.
Right. Okay, so close to $7,000 worth of fines so far in this case.
Does she have some sort of a fund that people can donate to for her defense?
Well, at this point, I think she thinks that Uber is going to cover the costs. Uber has provided an attorney.
That's what they had told her originally.
That's what they told her, but
nice.
I don't know if that meant that they were going to keep covering the costs if she kept racking up the tickets. I hope that that's what it means, but Uber can only handle so many thousands of dollars in ticketing before they just decide to shut down New Hampshire entirely, I would think. I mean, New Hampshire isn't the biggest marketplace for Uber. I don't know how much business they're doing on any given weekend. I'm sure it's more than a few $1,000, but nonetheless, I mean, $7,000 in fines from her, and then there were another 4 other tickets that were handed out this weekend. So that's probably a couple grand right there, presuming those people that received those tickets were their first tickets. Stephanie's been the only person up until this weekend who has received these fines. She's easy to identify. The police know her. They know what vehicle she's driving, and so they've been targeting her. So they pulled her over 3 times this one weekend. Friday night, they did it twice. Saturday, they hit her once, I believe. And here's more from the story. Now, again, the fine is $500 for the first ticket, $1,000 for the second. Interim Police Chief David Mara said, quote, "No one disagrees that Uber is a great service, but the law applies to everyone, so we have to do equal enforcement." Cummings said 2 officers were assigned to the detail Friday and Saturday nights and were, quote, we're not targeting Uber, unquote. He said all transportation services providers were watched by the officers during the 2 nights, and 7 of the tickets for unregistered driving just happened to be driving for Uber, they said. The other
We're not targeting Uber, but they're the only ones not complying with our ordinance, so they're the only ones that are getting tickets, but we're not targeting Uber.
Well, they did give the one taxi driver a ticket for allegedly failing to display a placard as per the license requirements in Portsmouth. So that way they can see, we did target this one taxi driver, so we're doing it fair and square out here. Everyone has to pay thousands of dollars to the city of Portsmouth to be able to operate.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. They want these drivers for Uber to go and register with the city government. They want them to pay a registration fee. They want them to submit their information to a background check to be run by the police department. And that's a different background check than the one that Uber runs. So when you apply to become an Uber driver, they run a background check on you. Rich, you attempted to do this, and you were denied because of your felony for selling marijuana.
Yes.
I was not denied, even though I have a couple of misdemeanor convictions, because from Uber's perspective, my misdemeanor convictions were not violent misdemeanors, so therefore, who cares? Okay, you got a disorderly conduct charge 5 years ago. No big deal. You're approved. But for the city of Portsmouth, if I had applied through Portsmouth, I would not have been approved by their process because they're a much more stringent check. They basically won't allow anyone with a misdemeanor in the last 7 years to be approved. Any misdemeanor. So simple marijuana possession or whatever, no victim, no crime. Well, according to the city of Portsmouth, you can't drive someone from point A to point B.
Well, and the interesting thing about the city of Portsmouth's background check is that nobody really knows if their background check is more stringent than what Uber does as a whole or not, because they testified, and I don't think testify is the right word, but during one of the city council hearings where they were discussing one of these proposals, one member of the city council said their thing is inadequate, meaning Uber's, but we don't know what all Uber checks for. So how do you know it's inadequate if you don't know what it checks for? How do you know that what you're doing at the city level is better than what Uber's doing if you don't know what Uber is doing?
Well, I think we do know that Uber's isn't as stringent as the cities.
But Uber also checks for everything across the entire country. What Uber checks for is only in New Hampshire. So you could rape
what Portsmouth
and murder.
Checks for?
Right, so you could rape and murder 1 million people in Massachusetts, and it's not going to show up on the background check that Portsmouth does because that's not an offense that you got arrested and charged and went to court for in New Hampshire.
Huh, I'd be surprised about that.
I think if you manage to take out 1 million people in Massachusetts, people will know your name. But
people will know your name, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be on your New Hampshire criminal record check. It will be on your Massachusetts records.
I'm pretty sure they tie all that stuff in together in a national database. So I don't know if that's
they were saying that they check stuff in New Hampshire. One of the people that got or attempted to get the background check said that it only covers stuff in New Hampshire. The Uber background check covers stuff nationwide.
Right,
but again, nobody in Portsmouth knows what's on the Uber background check, so they don't know if it's a better or worse.
Well, either way, the city government wants you to jump through their hoops, not just pass Uber, even though Uber thinks you're safe to drive. And by the way, it seems to me that the most important thing when it comes to checking on someone is, are they a dangerous driver?
Yes.
And that's one of the things that Uber certainly looks into. They don't want to be putting people in cars with drivers who are not safe.
But it's okay to drive a school bus or even drive one of the city buses. No background checks for people in Portsmouth that drive a bus.
She actually used to drive a bus.
No
Stephanie
background checks for people that drive limos.
She was a school bus driver at one point, and now she's been driving for Uber. She's called Uber Grandma. She was ticketed 3 times this weekend. Referencing news over the weekend that Uber is objecting to a proposal to fingerprint its drivers working at airports, the police chief said that Uber always says that's not in our business plan. But as a law enforcement agency, he said letting them break the law is not in our business plan, says the police chief. If the taxi drivers have to follow the law, then Uber has to follow the law. And, of course, the solution here is what some, very few, but some cities have done around the country, is to get rid of all of the regulations when it comes to people driving other people somewhere.
Repeal the law and let everybody have an even playing field.
Right. And if you want to have a taxi company that certifies that your drivers have an absolutely clean slate, no criminal convictions whatsoever, and there's certain scared riders out there that want to make sure they're dealing with the best of the best drivers, then advertise that and compete. 855-450-FREE. We'll tell you more about what Uber Grandma had to say in moments.
DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phones, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.freetalklive.com. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit Free Talk Live when you enter Amazon via shop.freetalklive.com. Here's a good idea. When you have a legal matter like creating your will or legally setting up a business with a corporation or LLC, you don't necessarily need a law firm. Use LegalZoom.com. At LegalZoom.com, you answer straightforward questions online, and they take care of the rest. They even review your answers for common mistakes and guarantee your satisfaction. Free Talk Live listeners, you'll get 10% off your order by typing in FTL in the referral box at purchase. Don't procrastinate with these important legal documents. LegalZoom.com.
Cryptocurrency and peer-to-peer tech developments happen fast. Stay in the loop with the Daily Decrypt, a new video channel and podcast that will keep you on top of the latest innovations in crypto finance, security, networking, transportation, and gadgetry like drones and 3D printers. Subscribe to the Daily Decrypt on YouTube and SoundCloud and be an early adopter of the future. The Daily Decrypt.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Monday, March 28th, 2016. Silver is trading at $15.29 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,221 per ounce. And according to BitcoinAverage.com, the average price of Bitcoin is $426. Antiwar.com reports a series of U.S. airstrikes against the Abyan province capital city of Zanzibar killed at least 14 people, according to local medics, and all of the slain have been labeled suspected members of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The Abyan province of Yemen has been held off and on by al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula since the Arab Spring, and they retook it outright a year ago during the outset of the Saudi invasion of Yemen. While it is considered extremely important as a long-term holding, Al-Mukalla has supplanted it as al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula's largest city and de facto capital. The U.S. has been launching a growing number of airstrikes against al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula fighters, including one last week against an al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula base that killed at least 50 fighters. Local al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula leaders confirmed that incident, saying those fighters were going to attack the Shiite Houthis. That has been a major complicating factor in attacks against al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula during the Saudi war, as the groups are largely fighting alongside the Saudi coalition in attacks on the Shiite Houthis, but are also taking advantage of the war to make gains for themselves on the side. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. UPI reports the U.S. Coast Guard discovered 7 Cuban migrants on a makeshift raft at sea, all with gunshot injuries. Emergency officials transported the migrants to the Lower Keys Medical Center on Stock Island, Florida, and 6 of the more seriously injured were then airlifted to hospitals in Miami. They were interdicted on a raft along with 19 other people who were not injured on Saturday. The U.S. Coast Guard District 7 Public Affairs Office said that those without injuries would likely be repatriated to Cuba under the wet foot, dry foot policy. A statement from the Coast Guard said the U.S. Coast Guard worked hard to ensure the safety of migrants on our cutters after an interdiction and strongly discourages attempts to illegally enter the country by taking to sea. These trips are extremely dangerous and could lead to loss of life. Are you an advocate for free market money? Do you promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world? Then you need Spend a Bit in your arsenal, the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. Spend a Bit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Visit spendabit.co today. Bitcoin merchants, ask about our merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.co. Reuters reports a Chicago teenager who appeared in an award-winning anti-violence video was in critical condition in a hospital on Sunday after he was shot in the back by a stray bullet near his home on Chicago's west side, according to police and local media. Police said 13-year-old Zariel Trotter, who was shot Friday night, appears in a minute-long YouTube video with several 3rd through 7th grade boys discussing their feelings towards gun violence and homicides. In the public service announcement titled "Black is Human," the 7th grader said, "I don't want to live around in my community where I got to keep on hearing people keep on getting shot, people get on getting killed." Police said Trotter was not the intended target of the gunfire, which broke out after a fight between 2 groups of people turned violent. The video, which begins with 2013 data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, was awarded the Advocacy Media Award, according to the Facebook group of Burrell Communications, which created the video. The company posted on Facebook, "Our hearts go out to Zariel and his family. We wish him a speedy recovery." The Chicago Tribune newspaper reported that Zariel Trotter had surgery on Saturday at Mount Sinai Hospital. He was shot about half a mile from both his school and his home. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. That's shop.fppradio.com. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Tides are caused by the moon. The moon's gravitational pull also sucks up the feces and urine of the ocean floor, dumping it in the intertidal zones. The tide goes out, revealing pus-filled cysts known as tide pools. while the moon itself remains hypocritically pristine. Crabs are one of the many disgusting denizens of intertidal pools. They feed on feces and corpses with their demonic mouths. Scuttling hither and thither, they compete relentlessly for the juiciest excrement. Finding a walrus turd is truly nirvana for these abhorrent beasts. After accumulating too much filth to move, crabs bathe themselves in the ocean. Waste floods off the crab's exoskeleton and back into the tide pools as the cycle of begins anew.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, launching into the second hour of the program. Plenty of time for you. If you want to join us here, our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Also, you can join us on Skype at Skype username LRN.FM. Joining you in studio, you've got Ian,
Rich Paul,
and Darryl.
And we're updating you on the latest from the free Uber controversy, which has been bubbling over the last several months. It started back in August of 2015 when Christopher David, who is a liberty activist who moved here into New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project a few years back, started to become the civil disobedience Uber driver. With the intention of, at some point, likely getting pulled over and ticketed. Well, it ended up being Uber Grandma who was targeted by the police in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and she this weekend was hit 3 more times, now with a total of 7 tickets just for driving people safely from point A to point B. And we'll talk more about that, give you the latest on that case. But first, we go to the phones and to the fun. Cameron is calling from CU. I don't know where that is. Cameron, where are you at tonight?
Oh, Kernville, California.
California. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, Ian, good to talk to you. I heard the other day your studios were raided, and I wonder what the excuse was, why they took the computers.
Oh, well, you can go to freekeen.com, scroll back a little bit. You'll get a lot more detail about that. But the FBI claims they're investigating child pornography.
Oh, geez. So they're setting you up, sounds like.
Well, hopefully they're not. Don't expect that they're going to find anything on those computers, but if they want to do something, they certainly can.
Sure can. Okay, well, that's
all you wanted to know?
Thanks very much.
That's it? Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for the call tonight. Toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, and you can join us here and bring up whatever's on your mind. So back to the issue of free Uber, which is a movement that Christopher David came up with for the purpose of not just freeing Uber, but just sort of setting not just ride sharing, but all transportation services free. You shouldn't have to ask any government bureaucrat's permission to be able to give someone a ride somewhere for money. Because remember, if you take someone somewhere for no money, the government can't come after you for that. I could go to Portsmouth and drive people around all night long and charge them nothing, and I won't have to have a government permission slip. But as soon as I charge 10 cents, 1 cent, $1, whatever, even if I accept donations, then as soon as money changes hands, it becomes an illegal act.
I could almost guarantee, and I'm purely speculating here, but I could almost guarantee that if you did drive around in Portsmouth just picking up people and dropping them off somewhere and they never gave you any money for anything, at some point during the night a police officer would come harass you about something.
It could happen, but I have to wonder, how is it that the police are determining who is Uber and who's not? How did the police know? I mean, obviously they know Uber Grandma because they know who she is, but they gave out 7 tickets this weekend, and Uber Grandma was 3 of the 7.
They may have downloaded the app.
Well, that is one way to do it, right? If you get
where are the drivers? Oh, there's a driver right in front of me.
That's true. If you get the Uber app, for those who've never used this before, you download the app, you load it up, and it actually shows you, I think, 6 cars. It doesn't ever show you more than 6 of the cars at any one time. There's probably not much more than that at any time in Portsmouth anyway. But if there were 20 cars, you wouldn't see all 20. You'd only see like the closest 6 to you. and then you can actually see where those cars are on the road, which is a cool feature because unlike a cab company where if you need a cab ride, you call the cab company, they send a dispatch sends out the word to the cab, and then you just wait for a half hour, 40 minutes, an hour. Some people have said they've waited for 2 hours for a cab in Portsmouth before. So there's no wonder that Uber is incredibly popular because usually, in my experience with Uber, it's like a 5-minute wait to get the car.
And in my experience, Manchester and Portsmouth have terrible cab service. There are 1 hour, 2 hour waits. There are companies that you will call, and maybe they don't get to you. And maybe they don't even call you back to tell you they're not coming.
Wow.
I've had that happen in Manchester.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's bad.
Whereas with Uber, when you put your request in for the ride, the app goes and it finds the nearest driver. You don't see this happening, but what's happening behind the scenes is Uber, they know where everyone is, like GPS tracking or whatever, and so the nearest driver gets like a 10 seconds to their phone starts flashing. I'm an Uber driver, so I've done this. So the phone starts flashing. It says, "Hey, you've got a ride possibility here. Do you want this?" And if you don't respond, if you're not paying attention or something like that, you're busy doing something else, you're not there, you're going to miss that ride, and it's going to go to the next nearest driver. So whoever it is that the driver is that's closest to the rider is the one that gets the opportunity to take that ride first. And so if there's a handful of cars in any given in any given area, you're going to have a car literally just a few blocks away at most from you. In some cases, the car's just down the street. When I was giving rides on New Year's Eve in Concord, I was the only car or one of two cars. At times I was the only one, but at other times there were two cars up there. And so I'd pick somebody up, drive them down the street, and then literally a moment later, I'd be on the same street as my next fare. I went and picked that person up and drove them somewhere else. So it's super easy. It's a smooth system. They've done a good job with, ironing out many of the kinks. And so kudos to them for that. No wonder the cab companies are pissed because they're getting shown up. In a lot of cases, the Uber cars are much nicer than some of the cabs that are on the streets as well. So the times I've been in an Uber car, I've been really impressed with how nice the car has been.
Now, the cab companies do have one reason to complain, which is if Uber operates freely and the cab companies operate only under a stricter set of rules, then I would agree that that's not fair to the cab companies,
That's right.
And the cab companies should be released from those burdens because they could be as efficient as Uber if they weren't under this set of onerous laws. And a taxi cab medallion, I'm not sure what they're worth in New York City, but I'm believing it's
been
north
as high
of
as $1 million.
$250,000.
It's been as high as $1 million, but it's come down because of Uber. So now it's less than, I believe, $500,000 per taxi medallion. Obviously, Portsmouth is a lot cheaper than that in New Hampshire, but nonetheless, the burden is still there for the taxi cab companies. It's not there for Uber, but you don't hear the taxi cab drivers arguing to abolish their ordinances. You hear them arguing to regulate Uber. So it's the old slave-on-slave violence thing where, well, we've been subject to this abuse for decades, so we think everyone should be subject to this abuse, rather than saying, hey, stop the abuse.
Right.
Now it's time to end this.
Something similar is a lot of the hotel companies are now advocating for regulations on people that share rooms in their house through Airbnb or one of the other. Although I have not heard anybody arguing about couch surfing, which, if you're not familiar with there's the website couchsurfing.com where you can say, I'm going to be in this area, I need a place, and people are like, I've got a room. And no money is allowed to change hands.
Well,
so I've not heard anybody saying that needs to be regulated.
Well, that's just it. They can't regulate people doing things for free, right? I mean, at least you don't generally hear about that. Usually government regulations
They regulate
apply.
people doing stuff for free all the time. That's why they arrested the 90-year-old preacher down in Florida because he was giving people food in a park.
That's true.
It's true.
All right. Touche. But as far as the commercial regulations are concerned when it comes to giving someone rides,
when you start accepting money in it seems like you come under a lot more scrutiny. There's a lot of things that you can legally do for free that you can't do for money,
right,
from sex to driving a car. And how many people have not broken the law that says you can't accept money for taking people somewhere without a license? How many people have never said, I'll take you, but you got to give me gas money?
Right.
Well, as soon as you say that, you're a criminal.
Yep.
And if you support these laws, you should turn yourself in for violating them.
Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE. We'll tell you more. What does Uber Grandma have to say about the crackdown that has begun in Portsmouth, resulting in several tickets being given out this weekend? It used to just be Uber Grandma who received the tickets, but now they have branched out and been targeting other drivers. And I'd like to know how they know. Is it that they are monitoring the app? Are they going to start doing undercover sting operations next? This is Free Talk Live.
Today, how to incorporate your business in just 10 minutes so you won't lose everything if you get sued. Step 1, stop putting it off. If you're not incorporated and someone sues your business tomorrow, it's not just your business at risk. You can lose everything: your home, your car, even your life savings. Step 2, call the following number for a free 10-minute incorporation guide from Incorporate.com. 1-800-975-5269. They don't provide legal or financial advice. They just make incorporating quick and easy. So you can incorporate or form an LLC in just 10 minutes. That number again is 1-800-975-5269. Step 3, congratulate yourself. By taking just 10 minutes to incorporate your business or form an LLC, you protected your home, your car, and your life savings. And that is how you incorporate your business in just 10 minutes. But hurry while they're still giving away these 10-minute incorporation guides for free. Call 1-800-975-5269. That's 1-800-975-5269.
Biochemistry determines your mood, memory, energy, and endurance. Your body's primary metabolic function is to make protein. One World Whey is a unique, non-denatured protein. This enables your body to have virtually 100% utilization, whereas typical whey protein powders offer no more than 18% utilization of protein. One World Whey also delivers life-giving frequencies to your cells. The net result for so many people is improved energy, mood, and elimination of pain from inflammation.
This technologically enhanced One World Whey has been really amazing for me. I'm 36 years old, and for the past several years, I've been struggling with lack of energy, drive, and stamina. And after just 2 weeks on this product, I'm feeling so much more energy. My yoga practice has deepened, and as a massage therapist, I'm able to see more clients than I've been able to in years. I've never felt results that quick with anything I've ever taken.
Call 888-988-3325 or visit oneworldwhey.com. That's oneworld.com.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs. As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love, and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond those parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way,
love as your guide,
and liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com.
LRN.FM is proud to announce our official listening apps for Android and iOS devices. Now you can easily tune into our streams anywhere, anytime on your smartphone or tablet. Just visit apps.lrn.fm or search for LRN.FM in the Android or Apple app stores. Please download, rate us 5 stars, then share the link on your social media and let your friends and family know how you're listening to LRN.FM. Download it now, free, at apps.lrn.fm.
This is your Robertson Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Monday, gold is $4 higher at $1,222 per ounce, and silver is 11 cents higher at $15.36 per ounce. Bitcoin is currently trading at $422 US. Both gold and silver are significantly lower after Friday's sharp drop. This would be a great time to take advantage of buying on the dips. Give us a call today at 800-874-9760 or visit us online at rrbi.co.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip-in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm.
It is Free Talk Live, and of course, you can join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. The Uber crackdown began this weekend. It was promised by the Portsmouth police chief a couple weeks ago. I reported on that over at freekeen.com, and they did follow through with it, ticketing several drivers over the weekend, Friday and Saturday night, actually assigning 2 police officers to ticket 7 tickets to Uber drivers, and then they also wrote a citation to a taxi driver for failing to display a placard. And this is what the taxi companies wanted. They had been begging the police to take action. They had been disappointed that there had not been enough tickets written in to their minds thus far over several months of the Uber drivers flouting the law, refusing to jump through the city's hoops, although there have been several drivers who have jumped through the city's hoops. There, in fact, are 4 Uber drivers who did go through whatever the process is that includes paying a fee to the city, going through a police background check, and I believe placing some sort of identifying placard on their dashboard. There's several requirements that one has to jump through in order to be licensed by the city to give rides to people. Now, it's Ian, Rich, and Darryl in the studio here. If you want to share your thoughts, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. Here's what Uber Grandma had to say in her Facebook post that she made on Saturday evening. So this was after she'd already received 2 tickets this weekend. She received 3 in total this weekend for driving people places. She says, quote, "Why is it that 4 Uber drivers have registered with the town of Portsmouth? Don't you know what this is doing? Every time I've been pulled over, part of the statement from the officers has been, why don't you just go on and register? 4 others already have. I've stuck my neck out for all Uber drivers in the Portsmouth area, and I feel you 4 have stabbed me in the back. You're free to do what you want, but I take offense to you registering. I can call you something, but I'm not. Just remember, the next time you see me pulled over with the blue lights flashing, I'm taking one for all of us, even you. Just to let you other Uber drivers know, they are going to be pulling over Uber drivers tonight. I will be there anyway," she says. So, very courageous lady who continues to stand up for the freedom to drive, even in the face of mounting thousands of dollars of fines. Now, $6,500 in fines. There's a statement on one of the New Hampshire Uber drivers groups. There's a group of Uber drivers on Facebook where one of them did say that he'd seen a post recently from Uber saying they are going to honor their promise to pay the fines for the drivers. So Uber's ready to fight. They have provided an attorney to Uber Grandma, and they're going to court. She's not pleading guilty. They're going to take this to court, and they are going to see what happens.
And I'm glad for her sake that these are not what would be considered moving violations that would count towards that repeat offender.
You mean a habitual offender status, which could result in prison?
Or points on your license that could result in a suspension, which, of course, is death for a cabbie.
Right, and that's because this is a city ordinance, not a state transportation law. So thank goodness you're right. This will only be mounting fines, and it won't mean that she's going to lose her license or anything like that.
Right, and what I was more concerned about is the year in prison that she could face if it was a moving violation each time.
If she gets habitual offender status, it'll be there's a certain point at which you hit a minimum amount of time in jail.
Now, habitual offender is habitually driving after suspension, right?
Not necessarily.
Am I wrong on that?
No, you can get habitual for a bunch of speeding tickets. You can get habitual for there's different qualifications for habitual. So
most people that have the habitual status have it because of driving on suspended many times.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get too many speeding tickets, or you get not coming to a complete stop, you jumped a red light, then if you get a certain number below a certain amount of time, so I think it's like 6 and under 2 years, then that's habitual offender status and mandatory minimum 1 year.
Yeah, well, I was definitely in jail with a lot of people who were doing a bullet for driving after habitual.
Yeah,
is a bullet a year? Is that jail slang for a year? A bullet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I was in with one guy who was there for a year. He was just driving to work.
Now, there is legislation that would repeal the mandatory minimum on the habitual and I think 1 or 2 other offenses that would wind up then giving judicial discretion to where the judge could suspend part or all of the sentence.
It'd be a step in the right direction, but
step
still
in the
not
right
good enough.
direction.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if it didn't pass either, because these guys
Well,
are
it was retained
ridiculous.
from last year, and the bill that they had last year repealed every mandatory minimum that there was.
Oh, wow.
The bill that is being heard this year that was retained, it keeps the thing for habitual offender status, and then there's a couple of drug-related offenses, and that's it. So it's a bill that I think has a lot better chance of actually going through this year because it's not repealing every mandatory minimum.
Wow. Well, I hope that does. I hope that does get through, because mandatory minimum sentences in general they're just not just. I mean, the whole thing with the Hammonds started because the judge in their case thought that what they deserved in jail was 3 months, and the state appealed, saying that the judge did not meet his responsibility under the mandatory minimum sentencing.
You're talking about the Malheur Federal Wildlife, that whole situation?
Yes,
the Hammonds?
The Hammonds were the people who were arrested at the very beginning, and they had been in jail, and then they were released from jail having served their time, and then they were rearrested. Well, a lot of people thought that was double jeopardy. It wasn't really double jeopardy, because what happened is that they'd served 3 months, and the appeals court came back and agreed with the state that that wasn't enough and put them back in jail.
Right.
So that's
ridiculous.
Yeah, mandatory minimums are awful. And people don't understand also how these driving laws that we think of as trivial, especially middle-class people generally think of speeding tickets and that kind of thing as trivial, but a lot of people lose their licenses because they're unable to keep up, for example, with their child support. So the state thinks that it's a good idea, if you can't keep up with your child support, to castrate your ability to work.
Make money, yeah.
Because, if you're that poor, you should be poorer than that.
Right, you should only be able to have a job you can walk to rather than any job that you can possibly drive to.
And so these people intrepidly try to go on working their job, and they start getting pulled over for driving on a suspended license. Well, then, you end up in jail for a year. That means you lose your job, you lose your home, you probably lose all of your possessions, unless you're lucky enough to have somebody collect them for you. And, these are life-killing laws.
Absolutely.
They're not trivial.
Yeah, I totally agree. There are people who aren't just in for a year. There are people in for multiple years. One of the guys we know who's a Free State Project early mover named Dan, he's in prison for 2 years for a mandatory minimum habitual offender status. Yeah. So once you do a 1 year stint, you probably are going to face a longer term if you continue to drive after that.
Yeah.
The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. Is that who you really want to put in jail? Is people who are driving to work? We're not talking about DUI here. The guys that were in, when I was in jail for civil disobedience, the guys who were in for DUI, one was there for 3 days, another was there for 21 days. The guy who was a habitual offender who was driving to work was in for a year. It's Free Talk Live.
By now you know that wireless technology like cell phones do in fact pose dangers to the health and privacy of everyone. Block-It Pocket's wide range of products are unmatched in providing the protection you deserve. No scare tactics, just common sense. BlockItPocket.com offers quality American-made options to alleviate and eliminate these invisible dangers. Learn more at BlockItPocket.com or call 888-315-9618. BlockItPocket.com, enhancing health and privacy.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective, multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phones, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.freetalklive.com. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit Free Talk Live when you enter Amazon via shop.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Help get LRN.FM into more ears. Visit promote.lrn.fm for a free bumper sticker, flyers, banners, graphics, and more. Promote.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. The Uber crackdown happened this weekend in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Several tickets were issued to Uber drivers, including Uber Grandma, who is now up to her 7th ticket, amounting to a total of $6,500 in fines, just for trying to give people a ride home, just for giving them a safe way to get home without having to get behind the wheel of their own car. Or wait for hours on some cab driver to hopefully show up where they've called them to. And because of her good deeds, she's been rewarded with thousands of dollars in fines.
Because in the presence of the state, no good deed goes unpunished.
Exactly. So we'll continue with that story, and we'll get more from Uber Grandma. You can share your thoughts with us here, toll free at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Plus, if you're getting online and you're making purchases, why not save 20%? Well, because it's easy to do. You can go to saveatpurse.com. That's saveatpurse.com. And if you have Bitcoin, you can save 20% or more or less. You get to decide what your discount is, but 20% is super easy to get at saveatpurse.com. The key is you have to have Bitcoin, and it's anything that you pretty much want to buy through Amazon. So I've been purchasing some equipment here for the studio after the raid by the FBI on Sunday, and I've been getting 20-25% off easily from saveatpurse.com. You can do the same thing. Get started. Saveatpurse.com. We'll get back to Uber in moments. James is on the line in Arizona, though. James, go ahead with your thoughts.
Disciple Paul, I heard when you were a 13-year-old stud boy genius wandering late at night, you ended up sweeping a 23-year-old unmarried mother of two that happened to work the graveyard shift at a convenience store off her feet. So I was betting that she was pretty smoking. A Camel non-filter, or was it a joint when she hit on you?
I'm sorry, you want to know what she smoked? She smoked Salem Slim Light.
No, I bet I'm joking that she wasn't smoking at all, except for a joint or a Camel non-filter, because that's the kind of woman that would hit on a 13-year-old boy. But anyway...
Well, actually, I was hitting on her, bro. You didn't listen to the story very carefully. I was pursuing her.
You swept her off her feet. I guess you didn't hear me say that either.
Oh, okay. Well, then you said she was making advances at me, so I wasn't sure you were clear on that.
Usually between adults, any 23-year-old woman that would have sex with a 13-year-old is seducing a boy, a child. But I know you had a mad genius IQ. So how's that been working out for you, couch surfer, 30 years later? Isn't that how Darryl knows about the app?
Pretty well. I had a great career as a computer programmer that I really enjoyed, and then I moved on to more important things because I decided that it was. I'm sorry. If you're going to ask me questions, you're going to have to let me answer them, or we're going to knock you off the air, bro.
Tell me the BS.
Goodbye. So you want to go ahead with your answer now?
I don't even remember the question.
Yeah, it wasn't important. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I can't seem to come up with a word I can use on the radio, so I'll cede the floor back to the chair.
Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Look, I understand where people are coming from when they say that young people at the age of 13 or 14 or whatever can't make decisions for themselves. Maybe some of them can't. But some of them can, because age isn't everything.
Exactly. And that's my whole thing on the age of consent debate, is that it's asking the wrong question. Clearly, there are a lot of people on Earth who are too young to have sex, and there are a lot of people on Earth who are not too young to have sex. But my contention is that as a matter of mathematics, there exists no number X such that all people under X days old are unprepared for sex, and all people over X days old are prepared for sex. And therefore, asking what that number X is, trying to solve for X, is asking the wrong question. The question is, what condition does a person have to be in? What mental and physical attributes do they have to have in order for their acceptance of sex or consent to sex to be respected by the powers that be? And to me, I don't think there will ever be a single set of family values to answer that question. It's something that should be answered by each family with respect to their own children, by defending their children when they believe their children need defense, and by
further each
acquiescing when they do not believe the children need defense. And then the remaining question is, what do you do when there's a conflict between the parents and the children? If the parents and the children agree, then I don't think you've got an issue. But when they disagree, then yes, there should be a way for kids to be able to say to somebody, I'm old enough and wise enough to be out from under my parents' control in this respect. And I don't know who that person is. I would imagine that under different flavors of anarchy, there would be many different systems with this. But, this is something you should work out, I guess, with your insurance company when you buy your policy. I don't know exactly who would handle this issue under anarchy, but I know that whatever it was, it would probably start with the family.
Yeah, and I actually had an interesting email from an old friend of mine come in last night, and it was really long, detailed email where he talked about his first girlfriend in an experience that she had prior to being in a relationship with him. When she was 16, she was looking to be more independent. She met a 38-year-old man at a Ren fair down in Sarasota, Florida. And he gave her the opportunity to escape, right, to get out of her bad situation and come to live with him. And apparently he had a fixation on anal sex and begged her for it. And apparently the first time that she did finally agree to have it with him, apparently there was some tearing that occurred.
That's not good.
And not good. Not a good situation. And my friend, believed that was because of the age discrepancy. And I said, well, there's as much of a chance that somebody who was 19 could have also begged for the same thing, and the same damage could have occurred. So I don't think it's necessarily that it was because of the age discrepancy is why that girl did that. I remember my first girlfriend; she would have done anything that I asked her to do. Now I'm not into those things personally, but there's a certain type of person who wants to please their mate,
right.
And so they might be willing to do things that they otherwise would not want to do, simply because they want to make somebody happy. And I don't know if that has to do with an age discrepancy in every case.
No, because there are people that are 40 that they just want to please other people. There are people that are 20. There are people that are 20 that just don't give an F.
Yep.
There are people that are 40 that, they just don't care. So, no, maturity does not come with just a number.
Let's go to Hung Like Jesus. He is on Skype and calling from Georgia. Hey, Hung.
Hey, Ian. And I'm hearing myself.
Oh, I hear you just fine, if that's any consolation.
Okay. I want to talk about this children and sex thing, or better yet, my experience as being a child and not necessarily having sex, but experiencing it.
Okay. How do you not have sex but also experience it? Do you watch others have?
No. I'll put it this way. Getting into my father's stash.
Watching pornography.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And I want to, and even before that, I was extremely sexual as a child. I'm talking about first and second grade. I mean, I wasn't going out raping people and humping on trees and stuff, but I'm just saying I was extremely sexual as a child. And I think all my likes and dislikes, as far as sex goes, it developed then. And I think a lot of children, they develop what they like later on in life in their early lives. Personally, I think. So, this is about how children are really innocent. Children are innocent, but those things I think develop really, really early in children. And to deny that, I think it's just, it's just completely dishonest.
I want to give you a chance to continue your thoughts, Hung. Stand by. Our toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Look, I understand, people are uncomfortable talking about this kind of thing, but that's why I think it's important to talk about it. 855-450-FREE. Get out of your comfort zone. It's Free Talk Live, 855-450-3733.
Every once in a while, you get information that's worth changing your life for. This is one such time. You can save up to and beyond 25% on all purchases at Amazon. You probably heard of Bitcoin and just not thought much about it. You certainly know that you can get competitive pricing at Amazon, but now you can get a 25% discount on nearly everything you need to live. I've just given you a huge raise, and all you have to do is claim it. You go to saveitpurse.com and open an account. Do this right now. Don't wait. Then you fund the account with Bitcoin. You can buy them through expresscoin.com with a check or money order. There are other ways to get Bitcoin, but that's fast, safe, and easy. This information is worth you changing the way you do things. Go to saveitpurse.com right now, get signed up, and cash in on the huge raise I'm offering you. 15 to 25% off of everything at Amazon through saveatpurse.com. It's saveatpurse.com.
Hi, Pat Matthews again. I want to talk to you about selling online. And when I say selling, I'm talking about your home, your car, and even buying a house or a new set of wheels. There's a new kid in town, and that's buysellmakeoffer.com. The revolution has already begun, and I invite you to be a part of it. You see, get in on the ground floor because buysellmakeoffer.com never charges item fees. Can you imagine what the other guys might charge you for selling a car on their site, let alone a house? Well, buysellmakeoffer.com doesn't do that. And you can use Skype and YouTube videos to sell your products, big or small. Go right now to buysellmakeoffer.com and set up your account. For as little as $7.95 per month, you can sell up to 50 items, and they'll give you the first 30 days free just to try it out. Remember, no per item fees. Join the revolution today. buysellmakeoffer.com and tell them Pat Matthews sent you.
Do you know the difference between erudite and pedantic? If you do, you're probably pedantic. But seriously, a surprising number of erudite people mispronounce erudite, which has 3 syllables, not 4. Say erudite, not erudite. Because you are judged by how you speak, you want to avoid common misstatements, especially if you're a job seeker. For instance, do you know the difference between imply and infer? Only a speaker can imply. Only a listener can infer. And when you say you'll be out of pocket, do you mean out of touch? Out of pocket means you're on your own dime, not yet reimbursed. And if anyone ever asks, why do you always answer a question with a question? You should reply, do I do that? Just kidding. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
The 3 most important things you can do for Free Talk Live are 1. Share 1 episode a week on Facebook or in some other social networking site. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.freetalklive.com. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program. It's my firm belief that Free Talk Live's AMP program is the best use of your charitable dollar among liberty-oriented organizations. Support all the organizations you love. But make sure you give $5 a month to AMP at amp.freetalklive.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up at any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here toll-free at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. There is more on the Uber crackdown, where Uber Grandma has been targeted, hit with 3 tickets this weekend for driving people places safely. And then other Uber drivers now being targeted as well out in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We'll give you more on that developing story. Also, with you in studio, you've got Ian here.
Rich Paul.
And Darryl.
Don't forget to join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. If you like what we're doing on Free Talk Live, please become a Free Talk Live amplifier at amp.freetalklive.com. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. It helps us get Free Talk Live on more radio stations around the country, bring more internet listeners on board, expose new people to the ideas of freedom, because that's important. And if it's worth $5 a month to you, then you can help us with that. You can use any major credit card through PayPal, Visa, or MasterCard right on our website. And also, we accept Bitcoin now with the AMP program. So please go to amp.freetalklive.com. You'll get perks like access to the AMP-only call-in lines, the AMP-only podcast, as well as the AMP-only Facebook group. Get started, get signed up at amp.freetalklive.com, ampamp.freetalklive.com. We go back to Hung Like Jesus in Georgia. He's on the line via Skype. Go ahead, Hung.
Okay, one point before I continue. I could never understand when people said how political correctness was going to bring us all down. But it's solidified in my mind just tonight. How political correctness is just it's just running us all into the ditch. There's just some truths in life that people know. It's just not proper to talk about. And children being sexual is one of those things I do believe. I mean, we all played that. You show me yours, and I'll show you mine, little girls, and we were in whatever, however young we were. And it's just something. It's just natural. It's as natural as the sun coming up in the morning. And to make it something other than that, I think it does it. It just does nature a disservice because it's not going to change anything. All you're going to do is just get people in more and more trouble and make people look crazy.
I'm right there with you. That's actually one of the reasons that I formed a church. Is I think that a lot of the insanity in our society is directly because of the insane guilt and shame that exists for anyone who grew up in a so-called Christian nation, or I would assume a Jewish or a Muslim nation for that matter, around the area of sex. And Freud had a great insight. I think that makes people crazy. His very first case was a case that he called it hysterical paralysis, where a woman was psychosomatically paralyzed from the waist down, and he eventually realized that what had led to this was her guilt and shame over masturbating.
Oh, wow.
And she literally could not move her legs. Just amazing kind of case.
And it's been found in children as young as, I don't know, I can't quote the age, but it's children less than a year old who, I don't know if you would call it masturbation, but who get pleasure in playing with themselves. It's something that they do, and it's just it's just something that they do. But we, of course, have made it into something pornographic because we're so closeted, all of us, most of us, because we have to be. Or we end up like Ian. Getting raided by the FBI if we don't keep those things in the closet. And I don't mean child sex either. I mean just sexuality in general.
Just acknowledging that it exists is a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, just acknowledging that it exists. And I'm getting kind of sick of it too, because what are the sites most visited on the internet?
I don't know.
Porn sites
across the board. But nobody talks about it. But everybody does it. Everybody, I would go out on them and say everybody masturbates, but you hardly get anybody to talk about it. Why is that?
I got to say, it's got to be the puritanical religious past of many of the people in the United States. It's stuck with us for a long time. People, that's one of the things that they never really talked about it with their parents in most cases, or they got the most basic explanation about how babies are made, and then that was it. They were never really explained anything.
And you got to wonder, if a society is sexually repressed, what else is being dragged down with that repression?
Excellent questions tonight, Hunt.
Very good question.
Thanks for the call. I really appreciate hearing from you. The toll-free number, if you want to join us here, is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733.
Now, one thing that's sort of tangentially related that we did talk about here on Free Talk Live to a good extent is the issue of female toplessness.
That's right.
That in the United States is a sexualized thing, but in most of the rest of the world, it's a normal thing.
Right.
Don't try it in Saudi Arabia.
I didn't say the entire world.
No, I'm just pointing out one of the exceptions.
Yep. Right, but Europe, South America, it's completely normal to see women at the beach walking around topless. But in the United States, no, that's horrible. Little children might see.
Many native tribes, for instance, very common for women to be topless.
Oh yeah, all through the and pretty much any hot climate that hasn't been exposed to Christianity, you're going to find people topless.
That's not even true, because most of Europe would consider themselves to be, Christian nations. The Catholic Church is headquartered in Europe. South America is a very Catholic place.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
But female toplessness is completely accepted. It's some weird, like, puritanical sort of something that's going on in the U.S.
Well, and it does. A lot of it stems from the idea that sex is bad, right? Like, if people didn't believe that sex was bad, as long as if you're having it within the confines of marriage, then it's completely fine. But outside of the confines of marriage, then it's an evil thing, and there's all this negativity that surrounds it. And so, therefore, anything that evokes in some people the thoughts of sex, which toplessness can evoke for some people, for these repressed sexual people, thoughts of sex, then they think toplessness is bad. Or yoga pants are bad.
And marriage and this whole only within the bonds of marriage is, if you think about marriage, it's really sexual socialism. You know, it's saying that everybody, regardless of who they are or how they are, should have an equal number of mates, and that should be exactly one. And that, you know, you can't go outside that. Somebody with a stronger sex drive can't say, oh, well, I want to have two mates, and somebody with no sex drive could say, well, I don't want any mate at all. No, that's not okay under the Judeo-Christian standard, and it tries to force a lot of people into a box where they don't fit, and that's never good. I mean, obviously there are some acts that cannot be tolerated, like actual pedophilia, like rape, like anything non-consensual. But in general, building up this air of sin, if you will, around consensual acts is a terrible idea, I think.
Totally agree. I would contend that all pedophilia is in fact rape.
Yes, I would agree. If it's pedophilia, then you're talking about sex with children, and you know.
Yes, and they are incapable of giving consent, so therefore rape.
Yeah. Now, if I saw 2 6-year-olds engaged in sexual play, I wouldn't criminalize either of them.
Right.
That's a different matter. They're going to play doctor, and they're going to do what they do. And that's a line that's very dangerous, because a frequent sort of thing that you see with statutory rape laws being
zero
what
tolerance.
They are is you see a 16-year-old boy being put in jail because he raped his 15-year-old girlfriend 1 year younger. And the reality is they were having sex before he turned 16, and that was legal because they were both under the age of consent, and they can start having sex again as soon as she turns 16, because then both over the age of consent, but in between you stand a chance of making this guy a felon who has to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. I mean, what kind of a life is that?
Heaven forbid.
For nothing.
They take
for
a picture.
Teenager having sex with his teenage girlfriend, and that's a terrible thing.
I remember
that has to be stopped.
You mentioned pictures. I remember reading a story about a 13-year-old British boy that was looking at pictures of naked 13-year-old British girls, and he was arrested and sent to prison for possession of child porn.
Yeah, or people have also been arrested for child porn for having pictures they took of themselves.
It's true.
Yeah.
Toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. More on the Uber crackdown. And also, Denver police are mad about some student artwork. Darryl is going to tell us about that story, and you can tell us whatever you want here on Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live has partnered with Amazon, the largest internet retailer. Imagine a department store category, and Amazon has it. Books, electronics, office products, furniture, jewelry, automotive, toys, clothing, sporting goods, and dozens of other categories. Now you can shop and support Free Talk Live by entering Amazon through our website. Go to shop.freetalklive.com, and Amazon will send us a portion of your purchase. You're going to do the shopping anyway, so remember to enter through our site at shop.freetalklive.com. That's shop.freetalklive.com. Here's a good idea. When you have a legal matter like creating your will or legally setting up a business with a corporation or LLC, you don't necessarily need a law firm. Use LegalZoom.com. At LegalZoom.com, you answer straightforward questions online, and they take care of the rest. They even review your answers for common mistakes and guarantee your satisfaction. Free Talk Live listeners, you'll get 10% off your order by typing in FTL in the referral box at purchase. Don't procrastinate with these important legal documents. LegalZoom.com.
This is your Roberts & Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Monday, gold is $4 higher at $1,222 per ounce, and silver is 11 cents higher at $15.36 per ounce. Bitcoin is currently trading at $422 US. Both gold and silver are significantly lower after Friday's sharp drop. This would be a great time to take advantage of buying on the dips. Give us a call today at 800-874-9760 or visit us online at rrbi.co.
You can listen to Free Talk Live on the radio, podcast, satellite, webcam, and our live streams. But did you know you can listen to Free Talk Live from any phone, anywhere? Add this number to your phone, 213-493-0308. It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're familiar with your phone's calling plan. The listen lines are airing the latest episode of Free Talk Live 24 hours a day, including our live shows. Call 213-493-0308. That's 213-493-0308.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Monday, March 28th, 2016. Silver is trading at $15.29 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,221 per ounce. And according to BitcoinAverage.com, the average price of Bitcoin is $426. Antiwar.com reports a series of U.S. airstrikes against the Abyan province capital city of Zanzibar killed at least 14 people, according to local medics, and all of the slain have been labeled suspected members of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. The Abyan province of Yemen has been held off and on by al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula since the Arab Spring, and they retook it outright a year ago during the outset of the Saudi invasion of Yemen. While it is considered extremely important as a long-term holding, al-Mukalla has supplanted it as al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula's largest city and de facto capital. The U.S. has been launching a growing number of airstrikes against al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula fighters, including one last week against an al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula base that killed at least 50 fighters. Local al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula leaders confirmed that incident, saying those fighters were going to attack the Shiite Houthis. That has been a major complicating factor in attacks against al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula during the Saudi war, as the groups are largely fighting alongside the Saudi coalition in attacks on the Shiite Houthis, but are also taking advantage of the war to make gains for themselves on the side. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. UPI reports the U.S. Coast Guard discovered 7 Cuban migrants on a makeshift raft at sea, all with gunshot injuries. Emergency officials transported the migrants to the Lower Keys Medical Center on Stock Island, Florida, and 6 of the more seriously injured were then airlifted to hospitals in Miami. They were interdicted on a raft along with 19 other people who were not injured on Saturday. The U.S. Coast Guard District 7 Public Affairs Office said that those without injuries would likely be repatriated to Cuba under the wet foot, dry foot policy. A statement from the Coast Guard said the U.S. Coast Guard worked hard to ensure the safety of migrants on our cutters after an interdiction and strongly discourages attempts to illegally enter the country by taking to sea. These trips are extremely dangerous and could lead to loss of life. Are you an advocate for free market money? Do you promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world? Then you need Spendabit in your arsenal, the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. Spendabit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Visit spendabit.co today. Bitcoin merchants, ask about our merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.co. Reuters reports a Chicago teenager who appeared in an award-winning anti-violence video was in critical condition in a hospital on Sunday after he was shot in the back by a stray bullet near his home on Chicago's west side, according to police and local media. Police said 13-year-old Zariel Trotter, who was shot Friday night, appears in a minute-long YouTube video with several 3rd through 7th grade boys discussing their feelings towards gun violence and homicides. In the public service announcement titled "Black is Human," the 7th grader said, "I don't want to live around in my community where I got to keep on hearing people keep on getting shot, people get on getting killed." Police said Trotter was not the intended target of the gunfire, which broke out after a fight between two groups of people turned violent. The video, which begins with 2013 data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, was awarded the Advocacy Media Award, according to the Facebook group of Burrell Communications, which created the video. The company posted on Facebook, "Our hearts go out to Zariel and his family. We wish him a speedy recovery." The Chicago Tribune newspaper reported that Zariel Trotter had surgery on Saturday at Mount Sinai Hospital. He was shot about half a mile from both his school and his home. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. That's shop.fppradio.com. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Saying that he was giving his coworkers at Marley Publishing just a few more days to catch on to him, local mentally unstable man Michael Redding told reporters he planned on exhibiting 1 or 2 more warning signs this week before, quote, finally doing this.
I think I'll do just a couple of disconcerting things in front of people here at the office. Maybe give them a day or two to take action through the appropriate channels. But if that doesn't happen, then I'm going through with it.
The fully unhinged Redding, who plans on, quote, making this thing happen sometime next week, claims that despite displaying erratic and worrisome behavior around the office for the past few months, his actions have gone completely unreported by his coworkers.
I definitely talked about my frustration with life in general, and I even discussed my fascination with all sorts of violence. But that still didn't throw up any red flags. We'll see if anyone catches on.
Mike? I don't know him super well, but he's nice enough. He's quiet and he keeps to himself mostly, but I'm sure he'll come out of his shell. Just a matter of time.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here as we launch into the third hour of the program. Plenty of time for you if you want to dial us up at toll-free number 855-450-FREE. We've been discussing the Uber crackdown that was promised by Portsmouth, New Hampshire police in the issue of the free Uber folks. People who are Uber drivers have been giving people rides in Portsmouth even though they haven't asked the city for permission to do so. Now, apparently there are a handful of Uber drivers who have jumped through the city's hoops, and that's unfortunate. But, you know, that's just the way it's going to be. Each person gets to make their own choices, and some people are going to bow down. They're going to kiss the ring because they're afraid of what the man might do to them if they don't. And in this case, they've ticketed one lady named Uber Grandma. Her real name Stephanie Franz. She's 64. She's been ticketed now 7 times for giving people rides without a government permission slip. She's got a driver's license, mind you. She's not unsafe on the roads. In fact, she used to actually drive a government school bus. So obviously at one time the government trusted her with the lives of many children in her hands. But
they do not require the background check and licensing for bus drivers that they require of taxi drivers. They also don't require any such background check or license for, or special license for people that drive limos or that drive the aqueduct things.
And they shouldn't require it for taxis or Uber, but they are. And the taxi cab companies
I'm just pointing out that they're very selective in which forms of transportation.
It's not just selective, it's completely arbitrary, right? Like
yes.
if it's dangerous to be a taxi driver without a background check, then it should also be dangerous to be a school bus driver without a background check. But nonetheless, my point was she was driving for the government with school buses. Or I guess it's not usually in New Hampshire, it's usually private companies that provide school buses. But nonetheless.
Right. And if you're under the age of 18 in New Hampshire, you have to wear a seatbelt unless you're on a school bus and there's 50 of you on this little sardine can.
So the crackdown happened this weekend with 7 tickets being written to Uber drivers, 3 of the 7 going to Uber grandma, the other 4 to people who had presumably not had tickets written to them previously. And we're going to continue the story here from Seacoast Online, where the 3 tickets were issued by the same Sergeant Eric Kinsman. They had assigned 2 police officers to this detail this weekend of specifically targeting drivers. The police claim they weren't just targeting Uber drivers, but that's just who happened to get caught up in the sweep. There was one taxi driver who got a ticket for not displaying his official placard, but otherwise the 7 of the 8 tickets were given to Uber drivers. The 3 tickets allege that Stephanie Franz failed to, quote, operate in compliance with the city ordinance in that she failed to maintain a valid application with the city clerk. Now, what I would like to know is, how is it they know she was driving for Uber? Because they weren't doing sting operations. They were just pulling her over. So they didn't have an undercover agent who was in the car at the time. Now, Darryl, you suggested that they might have pulled up the Uber app that allows you to actually see the location of cars. But if there's more than one car on the road, how would you necessarily know exactly which one is the Uber car? You can't click on the car on the Uber app. It won't tell you this is a Ford model, whatever Ford is, Focus or whatever. You don't get details until you actually hail the ride. If you hail a ride, it will then tell you which driver and what car is accepting your ride. But that's not what allegedly happened here. The police were pulling over the Uber drivers and just issuing them tickets. So how did they determine for sure that they were Uber drivers? Now, if the driver answered a question and said, "Why, yes, officer, I am giving an Uber ride tonight," well, then they've just talked themselves into a conviction.
Right.
But if the Uber driver isn't actually answering questions and the passengers aren't answering questions, it's my contention it actually would be pretty difficult for the state to prove their case.
And I'm guessing that I'm probably giving them a little bit more credit than they deserve, in that I'm speculating they're probably doing a little bit of sleuthing of, all right, there's this car and it went over here. Oh, where's it going now? And then, like paying attention to where and seeing how many times a Uber car drives across a certain street and, there's this car, so therefore white Toyota, blah, blah, blah.
You're right. If they paid attention for long enough to the app and watched the cars, they might be able to discern.
Or if they, sat outside of bars where people generally would be picked up by a taxi or some sort of...
But you wouldn't know unless they had that Uber... Because some Uber drivers want people to know they're Uber, and they'll, buy a little Uber neon thing.
Get the little sticker.
I don't know if it's a sticker, but some sort of neon Uber U, like their letter U that they'll put in their windshield or something, and then you know it's an Uber. But not every Uber driver does that. You don't have to have that in order to be an Uber driver. So I think it would be interesting, and we don't know yet, how these interactions have gone, because not one of the Uber drivers...
And we probably won't know unless we show up to the court hearing.
Which I would like
presuming that there's going to be a court hearing,
there will
and
be.
People don't just wind up paying the ticket. We know that that Stephanie's going to have court hearings, and I can guarantee you that because she's been pulled over so many damn times, the cops know what she drives.
Yes,
so there's no question about how they found her.
But the question is, was she driving
they found
for Uber?
Everybody else.
Even if Stephanie goes and picks someone up, there's no way to say for sure she was driving for Uber unless
they're just going
to
allege that she is.
It would be interesting for Stephanie to go back. I mean, it could be they're staking out a bar and watching for cars that are not taxis, just picking people up at the curb.
Right.
Because you can kind of tell by body language when somebody's waiting for a cab.
Sure.
So, it might be as simple as that, in which case it would be really interesting to send some ringers into the bar and have Stephanie come back and pick us up from time to time where we're not actually paying her, and see if she still gets pulled over and written the same ticket, in which case she'd have a good opportunity to say, okay, now you have to go back and prove to me which ones was I taking money for and which ones was I not.
Right, because if money doesn't change hands, then it's not an actual cab ride. It's not a regulated thing. And so I think you're right, Rich. This would really be interesting if more activists would get out there and start kind of fooling around in this system. Maybe we'll see some of that with Derek J coming back soon to New Hampshire, one of our former co-hosts. He'll be back in the Shire within just a few days, and he's planning to move out to the seacoast. So I don't know if he's got any eyes on Uber or anything like that, but it's going to be fun, I think, to have Derek J doing his style of activism out there on the seacoast. We'll certainly pay attention to that. I know Christopher David is burned out right now on doing that kind of thing. He's facing misdemeanor wiretapping charges for his early days of doing Uber civil disobedience.
I thought he was facing felony.
They dropped it to a misdemeanor.
Okay.
So he's facing up to a year in jail rather than 7 years in prison, but nonetheless, he's no longer doing Uber driving as a result of that. And he's actually spending a lot of time on.
That's primarily because of the bail conditions of if he winds up getting any sort of offense, he goes straight to jail, does not pass go, does not collect $200.
Plus, he's been super busy creating an alternative to Uber, which is called Arcade City. And I don't know if there are any active Arcade City rides happening out there, but nonetheless, I think it would be interesting to kind of mess with this. I know TJ the Spy was talking about going out there and just giving people free rides until he was pulled over, and see, go after them or kind of, challenge them in court after that. Just all night long, give people free rides from bars and things like that, and see if the cops mess with him, even though he hasn't, no money had changed hands. So the ordinance was passed in September of last year, requires all drivers for hire in Portsmouth to register with the city clerk, provide proof of commercial insurance, and that they've passed a criminal background check. Franz, that's Stephanie Franz, Uber grandma, said some passengers riding with her when she was stopped last weekend urged her to tell the officer that she was their mother or their aunt to, quote, cover for me. She said she didn't lie and reported immediately that she was driving for Uber. Okay, so now she's basically talked herself into the conviction at this point, but it's still, the Uber is going to provide her with an attorney, so it should be interesting to see if they appeal this and go to the Supreme Court.
Does
and how
she
far
have
they
an
go.
opportunity for a trial de novo on this charge?
No.
It's a violation?
It's just a violation. It's a city ordinance, so there's no jury that's going to be able to take this case, sadly.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. In Michigan, you can demand a jury trial even for a speeding ticket, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, South Carolina, you can take anything to a jury. I took a seatbelt violation to a jury. Had the officer admit on stand that he had no physical evidence that I was not wearing my seatbelt, jury still found me guilty in 5 minutes.
More on Stephanie's interactions with the police this weekend. As she was targeted as the primary driver, she's sort of become the face of the free Uber movement, but now other drivers being targeted and ticketed for just simply giving people rides places. What do you think? 855-450-FREE. Join us here on Free Talk Live.
Are you suffering with hearing loss? Are you sick of people constantly complaining that your TV is too loud? Are you tired of asking people to speak up? Would you like to hear more clearly, but you don't want to wear a hearing aid that makes you look old? Then you need to try Listen Clear, a life-changing breakthrough precisely designed by top audio engineers to fit your ear almost invisibly. And you can adjust Listen Clear to find the perfect way to hear everything, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And right now you can try Listen Clear absolutely risk-free with free shipping. We'll even give you free batteries for life. So call now, 1-800-719-9349. Listen Clear is lightweight and completely hassle-free, and it's practically invisible. Call for your 100% risk-free home trial with free shipping and free batteries for life. For free information, call now, 1-800-719-9349. That's 1-800-719-9349. 1-800-719-9349.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London. Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
Free Talk Live.
I did all this construction. Well, I had the inspector come through, and he tells me it looks really good, but I think it looks better with Mr. Hamilton. I go, excuse me? He grabs a sledgehammer, and he just starts tearing the place apart. He says it'd be better with Mr. Hamilton. He was looking for payoff.
A $10 bill?
The guy was crazy. He went into my kitchen, and he asked for Mr. Lincoln.
I don't think I believe you.
My mother left me a porcelain doll collection that he just went to town on. And this is the problem with having to have inspections.
Thanks for the call, man. No, that was believable at the very first point.
The guy was asking for Mr. Hamilton.
How about Mr.
Alexander
Franklin?
Hamilton is on the front of a $10 bill. I mean, I'm like, holy crap, he's banging holes in the wall for a $10 bill.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Did you know you can watch Free Talk Live during our live show 7 days a week from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern via our studio cams at cam.freetalklive.com? Plus, you can chat with other listeners while you watch, all totally free. Now that our live video stream is hosted by YouTube, our video archives will be online even faster. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Listen, watch, and chat all free at cam.freetalklive.com. That's cam.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
You can sign up to receive the latest about the Liberty Radio Network via our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. That's updates.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here toll free at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. The Uber folks are under attack out in Portsmouth by the city government. They have issued thousands of dollars in fines to just one Uber driver. $6,500 is what Stephanie Franz has racked up in tickets, and three tickets, $3,000 worth of that just got added to her this weekend. They wrote a total of 7 tickets to Uber drivers on their first weekend of what was a promised crackdown on the Uber drivers. And so several other drivers were ticketed for the first time, which are $500 tickets. The second time you get a ticket, it goes up to $1,000. And we're sharing with you what could be some strategy if any of these drivers want to use it. Unfortunately, the drivers for Uber aren't necessarily activists. Stephanie's sort of become the face of the free Uber movement, but she didn't join Uber to become an activist. She wasn't intended. She just wanted to make some extra money to pay the bills. That's why she started driving for Uber. I joined Uber because I like activism, and I saw the opportunity for some activism with Uber. But they don't have Uber. They're not turned on in the Keene area, so I don't really have that many opportunities to go out and drive. I have to go to a city like Manchester or Concord in order to actually have the opportunity to drive for Uber. And as I understand it, it is illegal in Manchester to drive for Uber, but there's not a crackdown happening there, and I don't know of any tickets that have ever been issued in Manchester. But in Portsmouth, they are actively looking for Uber drivers as of this weekend and actively ticketing them. We'll continue with the latest on how these drivers, specifically Stephanie, a.k.a. Uber Grandma, have been interacting with the police. What's it been like? Let's go first, though, to Tim. He's in Wyoming. Tim, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian, Rich, and Darryl.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Sure, Tim.
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, you're talking about basically frivolous tickets, and when you force the issue with the ticketing agency, you can make the officer go to court, and sometimes they have no standing. They have nothing to say. They can't prove anything that they wrote the ticket about, and you can blow them right off. I've done it before, but what I'm saying is, in the case that somebody says if they freely admit that they've done something, well, what can you do about that? You can't really say I was not doing this thing when I just told the officer that I was doing this thing, and he's wearing his body cam or whatever. I'm just saying, in the case that they might. But
right, and she did say she admitted to the officer that she was driving for Uber, which is probably going to sink her. But luckily, she does have Uber, who's saying they're going to pay the fine regardless of how the court case goes. They are providing her with an attorney, so they are going to go to court. Whether they will appeal to the Supreme Court, I don't know, and on what basis they will appeal, I don't know, if they have any kind of appealable issues, because the arguments from the city is going to be that, well, we have the right based on state statute to have these local ordinances because there has not yet been a Uber or a ride-sharing law passed in New Hampshire. There's one that's working its way through the state legislature now, and I believe it passed the state house, but I don't think it has yet been approved by the governor or gotten through the Senate. So we're still waiting to see what will happen there. And of course, even if they do pass the state-level law, that will override the Portsmouth town ordinances, but I don't think that will invalidate the tickets that were already written.
Probably not. But what I was going to say is maybe, I don't know that anybody's trying to do it here in Wyoming or whatever, but I don't even know that there's such a thing as an because the population is so low here. It's not even 600,000 people. So, but as far as what people can do with their own cars here, I see people driving around with no license plates, and the cars are, essentially they look like they're falling apart. Mm-hmm. But there's no, I don't see them with paperwork on them saying my car is disintegrating, but it's still legal to be on the road, and as I say, the population is so low here, it's not as big an issue as it is in, obviously on the East Coast or where I came from in California, which the police would be on you in 2 seconds if they saw you without a license plate. I had a crooked license plate on the front of my car one time, a highway patrolman who used to be down the street. I think he was basically trying to work his way into getting a little Asian girl as a wife or something, because he used to hang out. Okay, I'm not going to go on about that, but
okay.
It was kind of disgusting. But anyway, there were a lot of little girls in this house. They were Vietnamese or something like that, and he would always be there. And it seemed as though he considered the neighborhood to be his to watch. But I don't know that he was really doing anything other than making sure people recognized that he was the law. And wanted to make sure everybody was doing what he wanted them to do. But
respect my authority.
That's right. He basically was doing that. He says, because I have this shiny metal piece on my chest and a gun and a radio, I'm the guy you have to listen to, whether I'm right or wrong. You have to do what I say. And I understand the respect for authority thing, but at the same time, the respect for authority that's legal, that's right authority, that's proper authority. Now,
I don't believe in that idea. I don't think other human beings have, just because there's some law that was passed or some men or women who are strangers to me in a room wrote something down, means that some man with a badge and a gun is some sort of proper control over my life. I don't believe that.
Well, that isn't exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if there's always going to be a ruling governing authority over you, no matter whether you like it or not. If you want to live on the bottom of the ocean in a bubble, okay, fine. You do it all by yourself. But if you live in concert with other human beings, you have to say that there's some kind of authority over those people and over me, and we get together and we do these certain things together.
But there should not be people claiming authority over somebody when the person does not consent to having an authority over them.
Well, okay, if you could say that, I guess, but at the same time,
I did say that.
Okay.
Well, right. To be defeatist about it, I get where you're saying is that's the way it's always been, so it's understandable that you feel like it's always going to be that way. But many of us would like to see that idea abolished in the same way that, chattel slavery was mostly abolished from our
I understand, but
lives.
We're not talking about slavery. We're not talking about, indentured
yes,
servitude.
Yes, basically we are.
Well, if you call taxation without necessity or without representation, which is...
How about taxation without consent?
But taxation without consent either, okay? If you say, I don't want... Okay, a friend of mine only paid like $40 a year for property taxes. He had the lowest tax assessment in the entire region, basically, because he had gone to bat for himself, essentially, as to get this law, not a law, but to get the tax authorities to recognize that he did not owe more taxes because he didn't want a fire department. He didn't want to have a fire department to pay for.
Whether it's $4,800 or $48, the punishment is still the same if you don't give it up.
Well, yeah, that's the way he looked at it too. I mean, he said I don't want to pay any at all, but I pay this because
you pay it to keep the man with the whip and the horse away from you and stop them from beating you. Thank you for the call tonight, Tim. I appreciate it.
Google taxation is theft.
Man, those memes on Facebook have been awesome.
Crazy. And have you seen the spike in Google's?
On the Google
Yes.
trends? Yeah, it's been incredible. For those that don't know, we can talk about those taxation is theft memes. They're brilliant, and it's Free Talk Live. Share your thoughts.
Don't know what's in your drinking water? Better get a ProPure. With the Pro 1G 2.0 all-in-one filter, remove over 200 contaminants, including fluoride and lead. Taste water the way nature meant it to be. Clean, crisp, and refreshing. See the complete line of ProPure water filtration products. There's a ProPure system for you. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer for details on our current free shipping special or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective, multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa. Hey.
Who do you think
Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't going to make it. Wait
a minute.
Forget it. Whoa. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me?
Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
Radio is the most personal of mediums. I exist right now in your head. If you listen to Free Talk Live regularly, you know me. Free Talk Live is on more than 160 radio stations around the U.S. and has been downloaded on every continent around the world. Hundreds of thousands of listeners with ad packages from $600 a month to $6,000 a month. Imagine what we can do for your business, project, website, or idea. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
LRN.FM is proud to announce our official listening apps for Android and iOS devices. Now you can easily tune into our streams anywhere, anytime on your smartphone or tablet. Just visit apps.lrn.fm or search for LRN.FM in the Android or Apple app stores. Please download, rate us 5 stars, then share the link on your social media and let your friends and family know how you're listening to LRN.FM. Download it now, free at apps.lrn.fm.
I'm Ian Freeman, host of Free Talk Live. We've been covering Uber for years on the radio with their ongoing legal cases across the globe defending your right to give people rides without asking government permission. I wanted to support Uber more directly, so I signed up to be a driver. It's fun to meet new people and help Uber push forward innovation. As of this recording, Uber is active in 67 countries, so there's a good chance they're available in your area. If you'd like to drive for Uber and make some money helping people get where they want to go, sign up at drive.freetalklive.com, and you'll get a $100 bonus after you complete a certain number of trips. With Uber, you can drive anytime you want. You set your schedule. To get started, you need a good driving record, 4-door vehicle, insurance, registration, and to pass a background check. It costs nothing to sign up, so visit drive.freetalklive.com. That's drive.freetalklive.com. And if you just want to try Uber as a rider, visit ride.freetalklive.com. Your first ride's free.
What's up next? Visit the Liberty Radio Network program guide to find out at shows.lrn.fm. That's shows.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live. You can join us here toll free at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. With you in studio tonight, it's Ian,
Rich Paul,
and Darryl.
I don't know who it is that's doing it. We'll get back to Uber in a moment, but since you brought up the taxation is theft memes, Rich, I don't know who it is that's creating all these memes. I suspect it's a group of really talented people. Graphically, but
I don't think it's a group. I think it, or not a group in the standard definition of the term group.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a bunch of people. I know I've made half a dozen.
What they're doing is they're taking graphics that historically would be very popular on the internet, like cats, topless women, things that people would like to generally share on the internet.
I've even seen people take, like standard memes of like the Forrest Gump sitting on a bench. I might not be a very bright man, but I know that taxation is theft.
Yeah, so taking things that would normally be shared in any other context very popularly and then adding very libertarian messages to them, specifically taxation is theft, but I've seen some other variants. Yeah. And then, of course, they get shared because, well, they look like your standard easily shareable memes, but they have this important message, unlike, a lot of these cat pictures are generally pretty unimportant. But a cat picture with the words taxation is theft on it is more likely to get viewed than some picture of a politician or whatever else might normally say.
And then some of my favorites are the ones where people will just take a regular meme that has, whatever stupid words on it, and then just at the bottom put, and taxation is theft.
Right. Or there was one that I saw that was like a list of things of self-improvement or whatever, and then you got to the very last thing on the list, and it was taxation is theft. So very, very creative stuff. And you said that, Darryl, there's Google Trends that you can go and you can search for how are certain phrases, search phrases doing on Google compared over time? Like, what does it look like? And within the last few weeks, this taxation is theft thing
shot up.
I mean, it's a huge spike. It was next to nothing, and then a humongous spike.
There were sizable spikes in 04 and 05, and then it dropped off, and then there was a little bump in 07 into 08, and then it went off to basically nothing.
Right.
Like there's still little bumps, but it's basically nothing. And then it's just shot up in the last couple of weeks.
It's brilliant. So whoever came up with it, and I don't know who it was, but congratulations to you, because that was very smart.
Yes.
That's all I really got to say about that. Toll-free number here tonight, 855-450-FREE. And it's also
was that
theft.
Another Gump reference? That's all I got to say about
That's
that.
all I have to say about that.
That's all I got to say. My favorite of the ones that I've made is a picture of Forrest Gump with Jenny, where remember the scene where she's throwing the rocks at the house and then she breaks down crying?
Yep.
And he says, sometimes there's just not enough rocks. So I put, sometimes there's just not enough taxation is theft memes. And that was like 3 weeks ago when it was first kicking off, and now it's just soared.
Yeah, there really aren't enough. I mean, you can just keep making these things. So kudos to whoever that is. And you know what else is theft? Extorting from these poor Uber drivers who are just trying to take people home. Trying to get drunk people from the bar to their house. And apparently that's a crime out in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We were talking about Uber grandma, 64 years old. She's now racked up $6,500 in fines. She's going to court. Uber is providing an attorney for her, so I'm interested to see how this pans out. Unfortunately, the FBI stole my video camera on Sunday, so I now have even though there's no way that you can store anything on the video camera, they went ahead and took that. So I'm going to have to find someone else's camera to borrow or whatever before I can actually go and start recording courtroom drama, because I'm pretty much the go-to guy for recording things in court around here. But I'm interested in following the Uber case, so hopefully we'll be able to get that on video when the time comes. I know it's getting closer. I'm not sure when her court date is, but she is going to court and she is going to fight these tickets, even though she has admitted to the police that she has been driving for Uber. She says that some of the passengers had been willing to tell the police that Stephanie was their mother or their aunt in order to cover for her, but she says she's not going to lie, and she did report immediately to the police that she was driving for Uber. Now, remember, you don't have to lie to the police when you keep your mouth shut.
You remain silent, right, and you don't have to lie. Lying to the police is a terrible idea because that's another charge.
Well, the federal government can charge you for that. I don't think local cops can.
Actually, I know Ivy was charged with that for using the name Ivy because it wasn't her legal name at that time, and she did end up getting out of it by demonstrating that people knew her by that name. But in general,
that could be considered refusal to
process.
That could be considered refusal to process. If you are getting arrested and the police ask you what your name is and you tell them a different name from your legal name, that could be considered refusal to process. But it's not a lying to the cops charge. Now, look, this isn't legal advice. There's different rules in different jurisdictions. So maybe in Chicago or something, it is illegal to lie to the police. I don't know. But it's my understanding that in New Hampshire, that's a different story. Still, I wouldn't recommend it. Better to keep your mouth shut than to answer questions.
Right. Better to say, I invoke my right to remain silent. You can speak to my attorney.
Correct.
And keep your credibility, because credibility is very important for an activist, and if they show that you're a liar, that can damage your credibility, and people won't take you as seriously. So it is important to take the moral high road.
Absolutely. And it's also good for your, for your soul, if you will, to not be lying to people. So, Fran said all of her encounters with police have been officers who have been, quote, extremely considerate, gentlemen, and very professional, unquote. She says she'll continue to drive for Uber without registering with the city because she believes in the Uber model and its ability to regulate itself. And I had a brief conversation with her over Facebook this weekend when she was getting these tickets. I suggested to her that she download the Bambuser app, which is a free app for iPhone or Android that anyone can download, and I highly recommend this app. It is a video streaming app. It'll take you maybe a handful of minutes, 5-10 minutes maximum. Download the app, install it, create an account, get your username and password entered in, and get it set up to where you are ready to use it. Practice recording with it a couple of times so you're familiar with how it works. But once you get it set up and on your phone, then it's a matter of pressing the Bambuser app and hitting the record button, and you are streaming live to the internet. And I suggested that she get this because so far we don't actually have any of the Uber drivers on the Seacoast because, again, they're not activists. I mean, they didn't start.
Not all of them are
She's
activists.
Become an activist, but she didn't start this with any activism experience or street cred. And so one of the things you should do if you consider yourself an activist, and even if you don't consider yourself an activist, just to protect yourself from lying police, is to record the interactions that you have with them. And Bambuser is a great solution. Obviously, a dash cam is also a fine idea. That way you don't even have to think about it. If you've got a dash cam, it's going as long as your power's on in the car. So you don't have to worry about grabbing your phone, fumbling for the passcode, and hitting the right buttons. Then you've got a recording happening at all times. So I recommend the dash cam first and foremost, but also have the phone. That way you've got two videos recording, and that way the cops know they're being recorded as well, because that can change how they will behave if they know that they're on the record. But she responded to my suggestion by saying, well, the police have been nice, they've been gentlemen. And I'm like, well, that may be true, but remember, they might be being nice, but at the same time, they also have discretion. Every one of those officers who's out there ticketing Uber drivers, he could look the other way. That officer, even though he's been assigned to the detail of enforcing the taxi cab regulations, he could just not enforce it. He could just come back to the office that night and say, well, I didn't see anything. And it's not his obligation, even though it might be his job, supposedly. A police officer can always decide to do something else. Oh, well, I was going to enforce the taxi cab regulations, but you know what? I saw this really drunk guy pushing this lady in the, next to this bar, and I decided to intervene there. And no police chief's going to question that. Or whatever. Right?
Where's your report?
There's something else. No, but what I'm saying is he could find something else to do. Come on, there's got to be some sort of criminal activity in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, besides people driving for Uber. 855-450-FREE.
Are you
you searching for your soulmate? Someone you can trust, who will never betray you? Or cooperate with the NSA? Stop searching. With EasyDNS, you found a keeper. EasyDNS does it all. Domain names, web hosting, and managed WordPress hosting. EasyDNS stands up for your internet freedom. And with servers in Canada, they do not cooperate with the NSA. Go to EasyDNS.com. You'll love their services or get a full refund. They guarantee it. And they accept Bitcoin. That's EasyDNS.com.
DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phones, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.freetalklive.com. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit Free Talk Live when you enter Amazon via shop.freetalklive.com.
This is a healthcare alert from the Pain Relief Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You don't have to suffer any longer. You can immediately qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you by calling our 24/7 Pain Relief Hotline at 866-389-0620. Delivery is free and all paperwork is handled for you. If you are on Medicare and have knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain, don't wait. You can qualify to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost by calling our 24/7 Pain Hotline now at 866-389-0620. Our representatives are standing by 24/7 to take your call and rush you your pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and all paperwork is handled for you. Just call 866-389-0620. That's 866-389-0620. Again, 866-389-0620.
Free Press Publications is an independent, alternative media and publishing company founded in June 2009 with the mission of ensuring a free press for the freedom movement and is committed to spreading the message of peace, freedom, love, and liberty. FPP also gives new authors an avenue for publishing freedom-oriented material. FPP brings you daily news and commentary on the website fpp.cc, as well as a daily 5-minute newscast, FPP Radio News, and weekly news, views, and commentary in the FPP Freedom Minute and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio at fppradio.com, and the monthly newspaper FPP News at news.fpp.cc. Find FPP online at fpp.cc. That's fpp.cc, as in Creative Commons.
The three most important things you can do for Free Talk Live are: 1. Share one episode a week on Facebook or in some other social networking site. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.freetalklive.com. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program. You likely buy all kinds of things online. Amazon is the largest online retailer. You can get what you need at the same prices with free Super Saver shipping by going to shop.freetalklive.com. Please do your online shopping at shop.freetalklive.com.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Juicy Juice, 100% juice, providing a full serving of fruit in every 4 ounces. Visit us at juicyjuice.com. When it comes to nutrition, kids need both fruits and vegetables every day to stay healthy and grow. For the ideal mix, your kid should have at least 1.5 cups of any veggie or 100% veggie juice, and 1 cup of any fruit or 100% fruit juice a day. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
If you enjoy LRN.FM, please contribute to your favorite shows via their websites and become an amplifier at amp.lrn.fm. That's amp.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live. Moments remain, but enough time for you if you want to join us here at 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. Uber Grandma says, I've come this far, but I could use some support. I'd like to see the people of Portsmouth out there protesting and supporting me in any way that they can. She was ticketed multiple times this weekend alone, now racking up a total of 7 tickets. over the last several weeks, a few months actually, and she's going to be taking them to court. She's got a lawyer provided by Uber, and we'll continue to follow this story here on Free Talk Live, keep you in the loop as to what happens. She's worried about possibly going to jail for this. She thinks she might end up becoming a habitual offender, but the good news is, from what I understand, is the city ordinances that she's violating cannot count towards habitual offender status, so I don't think she has anything to worry about there. And
I would check that out with my lawyer if I were her, but I believe you're correct.
Yeah, I believe that is the case as well. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that story, and you can follow the latest over at freekeen.com. Let's go to the phones and to the fun. Adam is in St. George, Utah, listening to KZNU. Hey, Adam.
Hey, I appreciate your show.
Sure.
I found this to be a really interesting topic. I'm kind of in Washington County down here, sandwiched between the hotspots of this standoff. The Bundys are just 30 minutes from here. And I think the backstory is quite interesting, that the Hammonds that own the ranch up in Oregon, or I guess used the land, were, after serving 2 years of a reduced time in jail for setting backfires on their property. And the backstory there is that the BLM was actually trying to force them off their property and were setting the fires in the first place, but ultimately served a 2-year sentence. It should have been a minimum mandatory 5-year. After they had served the 2 years and got out, a federal judge then stepped in and put them back in jail.
That's correct.
Stating that they needed to serve all 5 years. So I think during the protest, the Bundys, Ammon Bundy being most outspoken, pretty frequently said that they had no intention of using force or any threats of any kind, and were quite verbal about that.
Yep, that's what I recall.
And Lavoie, a few days prior to his ultimate passing, stated that the agents that he had come to know quite well, their attitudes were changing, and they had started to be much shorter in temperament with him, and he predicted that something was probably going to come to a surface. So he ultimately felt that his life could be lost, and he even stated that to family and friends who have been verbal about it since. And one other thing he was concerned about was that county sheriffs ultimately, he believed, had the ultimate authority. If you look at Mack versus the United States in 1994, this county sheriff actually forced federal agents, or kept federal law from applying to him. They were trying to mandate he exercise gun background checks, and he defied him and took him all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And ultimately, how this ties back is Lavoie feels like the federal government knows that sheriffs are the last stand and are coming after it. And in Utah, we have this bill, House Bill 276, that's been shoved through pretty aggressively. And there's specific language in line 353 that states that this new branch of the state government, the DLM, would have a director, an unelected official, be able to appoint authority to DLM agents that would usurp the power of county sheriffs. And this is the crux of Lavoie Finicum's concern. The ranchers and their land was simply the catalyst that started an ultimate awareness campaign in these three states, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, that's growing rapidly, about the federal government wanting to ultimately usurp the authorities of county sheriffs across the country.
What are people in Utah saying about this? I mean, what's the buzz on the streets? Are people on the side of the protesters, or are they taking the side of the federal government?
I live in St. George of about 150,000 in our county, and I would, this would be my assumption, but that it's at least 80% strong behind them and growing in awareness. So those that are no, I think is a 4-to-1 factor easily.
Thanks for sharing that tonight. Anything else you want to get out, Adam?
No, I appreciate you giving me any time.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the call. Appreciate that. Toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. Let's go to Richard. He's in Great Falls. Richard, you are, I believe, listening to KINX. Go ahead.
Yeah, 102.7 here in Great Falls.
Welcome.
The whole now here thing, honestly, from what most people in Montana think, is a ridiculous effort on the part of a bunch of uneducated fools. We had the freemen in Montana that wanted to kill judges, and they wanted to issue their own currency. And now we got these guys out here from Nevada that didn't want to pay taxes and wanted to graze their cows all over the land and not have to pay anything for it. This land was offered back in the 1860s to these people, okay? They're under the Homestead Act.
Who's these people?
I don't think the people
which
that
land
are...
was offered to whom by who?
The people that were in Malheur were not alive in the 1860s.
To homestead this stuff at a very inexpensive rate. Nobody took it up. Do you want to know why? Because it's not good for really much anything at all. It takes like 100 acres to graze one animal unit. Okay? It takes a lot of land, and there's no problem with – I don't have any problem with paying tax money to support the wildlife refuges or the BLM because I hunt, I fish, I recreate, and so do the thousands of Montanans and my friends and family on these public lands. We enjoy this land. We have no problem with it at all.
Okay.
And this whole push out of Utah is all driven by the Mormon Church and the Koch brothers under Alec and a few of these rednecks that are dumb enough to believe that there's actually a movement here and that they actually have footing. It's ridiculous. It is so ridiculous.
So you say that you're willing to pay taxes for those programs that you use. Are you willing to have your neighbor forced at gunpoint to pay for programs that he does not use and that he personally believes to be immoral?
None of these people are forced at gunpoint to do any of this stuff.
What happens if you don't pay your taxes?
What happens if you don't pay your taxes? You lose your property. That's a property.
And what happens if you try to defend your property from that theft?
Then you move somewhere where there's no property taxes. If you don't,
somebody shows up with guns to remove you from your house.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I move into your living room and you can move somewhere where there's no Rich Paul?
All right, you guys, you can't talk over one another. It's obviously you weren't hearing Rich when he was speaking to you. Go ahead, Rich. What were you saying?
I was saying that how does this sound? Why don't I move into your living room, and if you don't like it, you can move somewhere where there's no Rich Paul?
When does that happen?
You're saying it's okay to steal people's property, and if they don't like it, they can move. So why don't I come and steal your property, and if you don't like it, you can move.
Seriously, when does that happen? Cite me one example.
It happens all the time when people don't pay taxes.
No, it doesn't. You can't cite me an example. That's why you
anytime someone doesn't pay taxes, there's something that's called a tax sale that happens, and then the tax sale goes. I'll give you a citation. His name's Jay Noon. He's a friend of mine and a friend of the show. He did not pay taxes on his property in Palmer, Massachusetts. The city government tax sold that at an auction to one of his neighbors, and then they sent men with guns to take him out of his house and stole it from him.
I think that's ridiculous. I think that is absolutely ridiculous. I think. But that's an unrelated issue to what we were talking about with Malheur and what you're talking about with BLM and National
Well, no, it's not unrelated. I mean, you've got people who are mad about the government.
It's all about taxation is theft.
I'm with you. I think we should change the property tax laws in this country so that people don't have to pay thousands of dollars to just keep a home. You're talking about elderly people out here that are on Social Security and whatnot.
All right,
but
so
at the same time,
I've got a question for you. I've got a question for you. You said that the property was offered back in the 1860s and that the people that were offered the property in the 1860s refused it. But somebody is wanting the property now, and they were not alive in the 1860s.
Okay. Great.
So because somebody refused something 150 years ago, nobody should be allowed to make an offer on the thing now?
So we, the rest of us people that recreate, hunt, and fish on these lands and have no problem with those being under federal control so that we can use them as well.
Why don't you buy them?
Give up those rights.
If you love the lands, why don't you buy them? Why don't you and the rest of the people who use them actually just buy them?
Have you ever used public land?
Well, I'm forced to because I have to travel to get from point A to point B.
Do you hunt? Do you fish?
No.
Do you recreate? Do you camp? Do you hike? You don't do any of that?
No, I don't do that stuff.
Okay, so you don't do
when
any
you
of that
camp,
stuff.
you camp on private land.
Yeah, I have camped, but it's been on private land.
There's millions of people that do, and they enjoy public lands.
Great, buy them.
Continue to enjoy them. Huh?
I said, great. So make an offer. Buy those lands.
We contribute to those lands. We pay taxes to maintain them.
Okay, well, let's make this.
And it's not illegal for the federal government to own this land. It's not.
Let's try a thought experiment. Would it be okay with you if the only people paying for the upkeep and maintenance of these lands were those people who actually used that?
You know what? The thing about it is, that'd be great because the ranchers are the ones grazing their cattle out there.
So privatize it and make it a business.
Right. If you love it that much, then buy it and get it out of the government's hands. I mean, if you love land, then you don't want the government to take care of it because they do a crappy job of everything they do.
They screw up everything they touch.
Thanks for the call, Richard. I appreciate it. Wish we had more time, but you called right at the end of the show. We'll see you tomorrow night online in the meantime at freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
Are you a political activist who does things that the government might not like? Then this free ebook may save your life. Rats is your guide to protecting yourself against snitches, informers, informants, agents provocateur, narcs, finks, and similar vermin. Rats was written by OG libertarian Claire Wolfe. Rats is a short book, easy to read, and available free in many formats. Download Rats free at rats-nosnitch.com. That's rats-nosnitch.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com. You can get emailed announcements and participate in contests via our email updates list. Plus, we have a Twitter account that you can follow and a Facebook page where you can become a fan. So visit news.freetalklive.com to get news about Free Talk Live as soon as it's announced and the way you want it delivered at news.freetalklive.com. That's news.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier.